Chapter 204. Li Hongyuan was noncommittal. The flood in the south was the most important thing. Juan Ruizhong had been muddle-headed for 10 or 20 years. He should be helped to wake him up. As for whether he would be unable to recover from the setback or even die, or survive and have a great change in temperament, if he was still young, the latter was more likely. Unfortunately, he was already old. Perhaps the scene would be too exciting, and he would not be able to catch his breath. However, if he could pull through, Li Hongyuan would probably admire him. That would also mean that he would be oppressed by him for a few more years. Grind. Li Hongyuan was not interested in the things over there. He should tidy up the things that should be sorted out. Eunuch Mu hurriedly stepped forward and began to grind swiftly. It must be said that grinding could be considered his specialty when serving Li Hongyuan. He was fast and good. After he was done, he gently stepped back. Li Hongyuan spread out a booklet in the shape of a booklet and thought for a while. Then he picked up a pen and wrote very quickly. The words were like his person. The strokes were vigorous and powerful. However, ordinary people might not understand. Even if they were scholars, unless they liked it very much, they probably didn't study cursive. Luo Peishan was different. He had passed the imperial examination for decades and had a lot of time to study things other than the imperial examination. If he couldn't understand, Li Hongyuan would probably throw 4 words at him. You have an undeserved reputation. It was said that a focus man was the most charming. Li Hongyuan was a handsome man. Perhaps because his marriage with Jingwan had been settled, he rarely had a gloomy aura. His eyes were handsome, and his expression was focused with confidence. Few people could not resist him. If Jingwan was present, she might be tempted at this moment. He wrote 2 or 3 pages in a row. Be careful. Be careful in case the woman of the Ruan family silences him. Juan Ruizhong could not stand it and die, but he couldn't be killed. That would be too boring. Yes. In fact, there was no need for him to remind them. His subordinates would have considered this point. It had been a long time since they had done something for the first time. They had more or less figured out the extent to which they had to do to satisfy their master. Juan Ruizhong was sent home because of his mental and physical exhaustion. Originally, Luqingdi's people wanted to send him to Madame Ruan, but Juan Ruizhong refused. When he found out what his own backyard was like, he was very glad that he refused at this time. Otherwise, he would really lose face. It was quite strange for Rue to enter the house in such a state. In the past, when he returned home, even if his wife did not personally welcome him, she would arrange for someone to take good care of him. Now he had been sitting in the hall for a while, but no one came to serve him. There was not even a sip of tea. He was already feeling unwell, so it was inevitable that he would feel unhappy. Knowing the current situation of the Ruan clan, Zhang Xian stood up and headed to the rear courtyard. The servants he met along the way were the same as usual. When they saw him, they saluted him politely. However, when they were approaching the main courtyard where the couple lived, they saw a maidservant running out in a panic. When she saw Juan Ruizhong, her expression was as if she had seen a ghost. The first thing she did was not salute, but turn around and run away. She did not have the least bit of etiquette. Juan Ruizhong's face darkened. Anyone who saw it knew that something must have happened. Although he did not know what it was, the way to deal with this kind of situation was almost the same. Go and stop her. Juan Ruizhong's manservant obeyed the order and hurried to catch up. An ordinary servant girl in her teens could not be faster than a man who was a few years older than her. She was quickly caught up and then pulled back. The young maidservant knelt in front of Juan Ruizhong, trembling and crying miserably. She kept kowtowing. Master, I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything. Please don't beat me to death. I beg you, I beg you. What did you see? What did you hear? Say it clearly. Juan Ruizhong said sternly. The servant girl seemed to realize that she had said something wrong. She glanced at Juan Ruizhong in fear and quickly lowered her head. She knelt on the ground and trembled. No matter what, she refused to say a word. Juan Ruizhong kicked her away. Keep an eye on her. He went straight to the main courtyard. He wanted to see what kind of shameful things this family, or his stepwife, was hiding from him. Obviously, when Juan Ruizhong entered the courtyard, he found that something was wrong. Usually, There were old maids guarding the gate of the courtyard. When he entered, he could see the servants performing their duties. But the gate of the courtyard was half open, and he didn't see anyone. Juan Ruizhong subconsciously lightened his footsteps and did not push the half-closed door. After entering, he wanted to go into the room. However, he vaguely heard a sound. Following the sound, he found that it came from the pavilion in the courtyard. There was a curtain outside the pavilion. Under normal circumstances, it was down, but now it was down. A few days ago, it was his wife and daughter who accompanied him to admire the moon. Now, there was a woman's delicate panting and a man's rough panting. Moreover, there was more than one man. One of the men was obviously swearing, but the woman did not seem to be humiliated. Instead, she was more aroused and urged him. In exchange, another man's lewd laughter was accompanied by the sound of a palm slapping a certain place. No matter how embarrassing the voices were, Juan Ruizhong knew who the three voices belonged to. It was his stepwife and his two sons. As if struck by lightning, Juan Ruizhong stood rooted to the ground with a blank expression on his face. Look at your hungry face. How long has it been since I fed you? But, even if you do it, can you satisfy me? The woman did not speak, but she snorted obviously. Actually, I want to know whose child is Fangfei. Father, one of our brothers, or some wild man outside. That's right, that's right. Tell us whose child is she. Juan Ruizhong's heart was much colder than the winter. It was so cold that his blood almost stopped flowing. Why do you care who she is? Nominally, she is your sister. Do you want to touch her as well? The woman said. In exchange, the two men laughed ambiguously. The daughter you taught must be the same as you. Juan Ruizhong clutched the clothes on his chest tightly. His heart seemed to be fiercely pinched, as if he was about to suffocate. He gasped for breath, as if he would pass out in the next moment. At this time, a gust of wind caused the curtains around the pavilion to open a gap. That unsightly scene directly crashed into the depths of Juan Ruizhong's eyes. His dignified and virtuous wife. He still remembered her shyness on the night of their wedding. From that night onwards, every time they got married, she would be abnormally reserved. Sometimes he wanted to do something, but he was afraid that he would offend her. As time passed, he began to enjoy the warmth of their relationship more and more. But now she was so unrestrained. His two sons, even if they were not that outstanding, he was still quite satisfied. They were calm and steady, gentle and polite. If there were no accidents in the family, when he retired, even if he could not become an official, he thought that the family would be harmonious. But now they were like two beasts. He thought that the family was harmonious, and he thought that no one could compare to his wife and children. In the end, this family was a den of prostitution. His wife and children were all beasts. Pooh! Juan Ruizhong could not bear it anymore, and directly spat out a mouthful of blood. This scene happened to be seen by one of his sons. His pupils rapidly shrank and suddenly withered, as if he was scared silly. Father! It was like a whisper. When the brother opposite him heard this, his body trembled. What nonsense are you shouting? As for Madame Juan, she was skilled in martial arts. But because of her absolute trust in the people around her, coupled with the ups and downs of the sea of desire, she was only vaguely aware of the strangeness outside. When she heard the word father, she instantly recovered a lot. Just as she was about to get up, the person behind her suddenly pulled away and rushed out. Father! It was accompanied by fear. No matter how deep he had sunk, he was now awake. Madame Juan sat up with a whoosh, her expression stern. The man beside her was scared pale. Juan Ruizhong, who had spat out blood, slowly fell down. But his eyes were filled with bone-piercing pain and bloodthirsty hatred. He was a scholar. He had the strength and bearing of a scholar. He was capable of doing things. Under normal circumstances, he was amiable. He had probably never shown such an expression in his life. So much so that the man who ran out wearing only a piece of underwear hesitated, not daring to go forward. Old master, old master. The manservant who was in charge of guarding the young maidservant had somehow come in. Seeing the situation, he practically scrambled over to catch Juan Ruizhong, who was about to fall to the ground. Master, master. As he pinched Juan Ruizhong's philtrum, He took advantage of the cover to give Juan Ruizhong a pill. Juan Ruizhong's eyes were still open, but he was still staring at the pavilion. That appearance was as if he had died with his eyes open. His son was trembling in fear. The ugly thing under him drooped. Such an ugly appearance. Where was the modesty of a gentleman? Being stared at like that, his legs went soft, and he knelt on the ground with a bang. As for the other two people in the pavilion, they tidied up their clothes and came out. Compared to the two men who were trembling in fear, Madame Ruan was much calmer. Although she was frowning, the focus was not on the fact that her husband had caught her in the act. She looked at Juan Ruizhong indifferently. "How did you come in?" It had been so many years. Although she had never encountered this old thing coming back when he was not supposed to, even if she did, she would be able to know at the first moment. She would be able to pack up at the fastest speed, so that he would not be able to detect the slightest clue. It was reasonable to say that today should be the same. However, not only did Juan Ruizhong break in, she did not receive any news at all. Because she was absolutely relieved, she let down her guard. So much so that she did not even know how long Juan Ruizhong had been here. Juan Ruizhong's eyes widened. His finger trembled as he pointed at his stepwife. You. She was caught doing such an unbearable thing. But there was no fear, no guilt, let alone repentance. It looked as if it was impossible for him to break in. The rise and fall of his chest became more obvious. Master, nothing can happen to you. If something happens to you, wouldn't it benefit these adulterous men and women? This bitch wants to anger you. If you die, no one will know about their scandal. In the future, the Ruan family will be completely controlled by her. So you must hold on. You must hold on, master. Madame Ruan's gaze fell on the servant. Even if this servant was not one of her people, he usually gave her some information about Juan Ruizhong's affairs outside. With the courage of a normal person, he should avoid this kind of thing. But now he said such words. It would be strange if there was no problem. Madame Ruan was not in a hurry to deal with him. Instead, she looked around and did not see anything. However, the people who were supposed to be guarding outside did not appear. Madame Ruan suddenly smiled. She was very clear that she had fallen into a trap. This time, it was not her daughter who did anything but her. And it was so ruthless. How many of her people did not know? That's right. In her opinion, being caught in the act by Juan Ruizhong was not a big deal. If he did not know, there were ways to deal with it. If he knew, there were also ways to deal with it. Although relying on Juan Ruizhong was beneficial, there were also disadvantages in the future. Her actions would be restricted. If he knew, the worst-case scenario was to kill him. The manservant's words seemed to have worked. Juan Ruizhong took a deep breath and slowly stood up with the help of the manservant. He walked forward step by step. He used to care for this woman as much as he loved her. Now he hated her as much as he felt pain. He swung his hand and slapped her. *TCH. I've been so good to you, so good to you. Madame Ruan's head only tilted a little. The current Juan Ruizhong was almost half dead. How much strength could his hand have? For her, it was not painful at all. When I married you, you were already so old. I was still young and beautiful. Shouldn't you be good to me? Your body is not strong and not strong. Every time you are not interested, you are done. Isn't it normal for me to wear a green hat? You have many sons, so you don't have to look outside. Now your sons are almost useless. Your grandchildren can be found. They are young enough, and there are many of them. Pa. Juan Ruizhong was so angry that he slapped her again. You lewd woman. Madame Ruan sneered. She had been afraid of breaking the vases before. Now she was a turtle in a jar. What else did she have to care about? The person hiding in the dark really knew everything about her. Then, she was almost certain that she would not die. Her value alive was far greater than death. So she was now fearless. However, the other party did not make a move. Once he made a move, it was like a thunderbolt. This method was really likable. Moreover, everything was clearly under his control, but she did not notice it at all. This ability was really admirable. Juan Ruizhong, you can only scold me now. Other than that, what else can you do? Your life has been smooth sailing, and you think you are infallible. What ability do you have outside? You don't even know what your own backyard is like. You were smart your whole life, but also stupid your whole life. How does it feel to lose your integrity in your later years? If I didn't believe you. That's why I said you think you are infallible, stupid. If you didn't disguise yourself so well, Madame Rouen sneered. A 16-year-old girl married an old man like you. Would she treat the nest of children, who are much older than her, as her own? Considerate in all aspects? Do you think you are the emperor? How shameless do you think you are? You actually did not doubt it and wholeheartedly believed it. Then, you deserve to be played in the palm of your hand. You only have yourself to blame. Juan Ruiz Hong was trembling with anger, but he could not say a word to refute. Bitch, this old man wants you to die a horrible death, a horrible death. Whether I die or not, I'm afraid it is not up to you to decide. You have to ask the person behind you first. What do you mean? What do I mean? For 10 or 20 years it was hidden. Suddenly it was discovered by you. No one got rid of the gatekeeper. How could you come in? Madame Rouen now seemed to have a broken jar, and did not care at all. However, until the end, no one knew what the result would be. As long as she was alive, there was hope. If she was dead, then it was all over. Juan Ruizhong's first reaction was not anything else. His family's biggest scandal was known by an outsider. And as the head of the family, he actually needed an outsider's help to find out? How many people had laughed at him? Who is it? His old face was terrifyingly gloomy, as if he wanted to tear the other person into pieces. He seemed to be in better spirits than before. He really valued face more than the sky. What can you do if you know? Even if it was your past glory, I'm afraid you did not have the qualifications to make anyone shut up, not to mention the current you. What's more, I don't know. Madame Rouen was no longer gentle and considerate towards Juan Ruiz Hong. Instead, she raised her chin slightly and looked at him with disdain. Juan Ruiz Hong really wanted to strangle her to death. Unable to bear it, he slapped her again. Sure enough, hatred could also support a person's spirit. This slap was heavier than the previous one. It was the best proof. You can also get angry at me. However, if you dare to hit me again, don't blame me for being impolite. There was a limit to her patience. The reason why she did not resist was because she wanted to keep a trump card. After all, she had never used martial arts outside. What if the other party did not know? Perhaps in the future, she could catch him off guard. Not to mention other things, it would be good if she could escape. Sure enough, when Juan Ruiz Hong reached out again, she grabbed his wrist and threw it away. If Juan Ruiz Hong was not supported, he probably would have staggered. It was said that a woman had 3 obediences and 4 virtues, and treated her husband as her sky. He had never seen a woman who had committed a heinous crime still be so insolent. Juan Ruizhong's eyes were about to split open. Wei Shi, I can't do anything to others but your Wei clan. Madame Rouen, no. It might be more appropriate to call her Wei Shi now. She laughed mockingly. Wei Shi, do as you wish. She turned around and kicked the man kneeling on the ground. It seemed like a casual kick, but it was enough to make people feel heart-wrenching pain. Wait until the person behind you comes and tells you how to deal with me. Then come again. He watched helplessly as she entered the room and closed the door, but he could not do anything to her. He cared about his family, his reputation, and his face. However, when he met someone who did not care about these things, the one who was afraid of taking action became her. That woman had nothing to fear, but the 2 in front of him were his sons. He was old, but the dignity of a superior was still there. The other one was so scared that he immediately knelt on the ground. Wei Shi's reaction and words had greatly surprised them. However, they did not have the courage. This was their father. Even if he really beat them to death, they would not dare to do anything. However, this did not prevent them from begging for mercy. Father, son knows his mistake. Please calm down. Don't be angry and harm your body. Father, it's all because of that bitch who seduced son. Otherwise, son would not dare to offend stepmother, even if you gave son 100 guts. It's her. It's all because of her that our family became like this. Think about it, when mother was still here, our family was so good. Juan Ruiz Hong paused. Thinking of his first wife, he felt sad for a moment. However, it was useless to think about it at this time. Ever since Wei Shi married into the family, he had rarely thought of his first wife. In the first few years, perhaps he wanted to go to the temple to do something for her and bury her in the ancestral grave. This was a long journey. Perhaps he could get some incense when the ancestral house offered sacrifices. Juan Ruizhong staggered, obviously a little tired. Evil creature, get out and put on your clothes. He rolled and crawled away. Juan Ruizhong glanced at the closed door, straightened his back, raised his head slightly, and went outside. He could now maintain his dignity in this way. However, the servant who was supporting him knew best that he was trembling slightly. Wei Shi heard all the movements outside. Sure enough, men were all the same. When they made a mistake, they would only push it to the woman. So what if she seduced him? In the beginning, he was someone who had married a wife and had a child. He was not a young boy who was in love for the first time. She hooked her finger, and he would come over. Truly clear and honest, knowing etiquette, justice, integrity, and shame. Even a young boy would not hook up with his stepmother. Even if he would not reveal it, he would stay far away. Did he really think that she would casually pick someone to make a move on? A straight body was not afraid of a crooked shadow. The root was rotten. Pretending to be a gentleman, it made people feel disgusted. Wei Shi frowned. So far, she had not seen the main character. Although the biggest suspect was Jin Qinhuang, it was still a suspicion. She did not have any conclusive evidence. She was like a mouse under his cat's paw. He gently fiddled with it, and it could make you tumble, but you could not even see his true appearance. This kind of powerlessness was really unprecedented. Juan Ruizhong felt that someone was looking at him as a joke. How could Wei Shi not have this kind of feeling? 10 or 20 years of hard work was wasted just like that. She was not reconciled. No matter how unwilling she was just a turtle in a jar, a prisoner. Juan Ruizhong ordered people to lock the courtyard door and pinched the key himself. The people outside were all Wei Shi's personal servants. These people clearly knew what Wei Shi was doing, but they all kept their mouths shut. It could be seen that Wei Shi's imperial methods were very effective. Thinking about it again, the entire Yuan family's inner courtyard was managed by her, without a drop of water leaking out. If she wanted to do something to him, just thinking about it made him shudder. However, this kind of matter of adultery with her stepson, she would not dare to let the whole residence know. He ordered his servant to call the eldest daughter-in-law. Looking at the dispirited face of his daughter-in-law, who was punished because of the previous separation of the family. Did she, or did they know something that caused such a strong reaction? Flog this group of lowly servants to death. From now on, Yuan family will be under your control. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653231. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken.com mobile version reading website, Bicken.com. Chapter 205. Juan Ruizhong's gaze was heavy, but he didn't explain. In this situation, even if he knew that the other party was well aware, he couldn't expose it and embarrass himself. Many times, people were like this. They needed to pretend to be peaceful. Madame Juan didn't laugh, but it was clear from her eyebrows that her heart had turned bright. She lowered her head and respectfully accepted the order. Even though she knew that her father-in-law wanted to use her to deal with this matter, it was necessary to deal with it well. If not, she might have to bear all the consequences. However, she did not mind being able to deal with that B***tch openly. She had been looking forward to this day for far too long. However, when Juan Ruizhong saw her expression, his heart became gloomier. He wasn't sure if his eldest son was also involved. Did the eldest daughter-in-law's hatred for Wei originated from this? But there was no way to investigate this matter. If he really found out, he was afraid that he would really collapse. He would rather lie to himself. The eldest daughter-in-law was just jealous that Wei had always been in power. And according to Wei's age, She probably wouldn't be able to turn things around for the rest of her life. Juan Ruizhong left in a huff, and his two evil sons still followed behind him with pale faces. Madame Ruan looked at her two younger brothers-in-law. She actually didn't quite understand what that lewd woman, Wei Shi, had given them. Even if she gave them young and beautiful concubines, they still couldn't be tied down. Although the servants of the Ruan family all obeyed Wei's words, the Ruan family was so big that there were always people she couldn't control. For example, these daughters-in-law. It was good enough that she could arrange a few people. Moreover, for a woman to have a foothold in the backyard, a man's trust was the foundation. No matter how powerful Wei was in the Ruan family, other than her own group of die-hard followers, there was a prerequisite for others to revere her. Now the head of the family, Ruan Ruizhong, wanted to deal with her. Her people were all under his control. Compared to those people she didn't want to do, who would be stupid enough to go against the head of the family for her? Most importantly, there were quite a few people in the courtyard who weren't under Madame Wei's watch all year round. They didn't have her trust, and naturally didn't have the heart to win them over. They didn't feel the generosity and benevolence of their mistress. Now weren't they the best executioners under Madame Ruan's command? The group of people who were the guards of the courtyard were now missing. When they didn't know about Madame Wei's trump card, Madame Ruan didn't feel anything wrong at all. There were only a dozen people who served her closely. In essence, they were all weak people. There was no need to worry about them playing any tricks. Madame Ruan looked down at this group of people. Because of Madame Wei, they seemed to be well behaved on the surface, but they did a lot of tricks in the dark. Like master, like servant. It was not an exaggeration to use this saying on them. Now they were kneeling in front of her, kowtowing and begging for mercy. Haha, the more miserable these people were, the more carefree she felt. She didn't call for the execution immediately. On one hand, she wanted to see the appearance of these bullies begging. On the other hand, she wanted to wait for a person called Ruan Fengfei who was pampered in the Ruan family. Nominally, she was a sister-in-law. In reality, who knew if she was a daughter, a niece, or an unrelated person? Unfortunately, after waiting for about a quarter of an hour, she didn't see anyone. She was probably avoiding suspicion. Beat them. All of them were gagged. Under normal circumstances, there would be varying degrees of discomfort when seeing blood. However, when these people were your big enemies, this discomfort would turn into pleasure. It was best to beat these people's bones, flesh, and blood into a ball. Madame Ruan looked at these people attentively. One by one, their faces twisted and they struggled in pain. Then they breathed their last. Under her two words, continue, they became unrecognizable. At first they were quiet. Then they slowly smiled. In the end they smiled and smiled, but tears fell. It was like madness. She was already frightened by the pile of dead people. Her hands and feet went soft. She was even more worried that she would have nightmares for half a month. Madam, it's all in the past. A mother beside the woman comforted her in a low voice with a pale face. Madame Ruan gradually restrained her emotions. Yes, it was all in the past. She avenged her child who died in vain. She glanced at the closed courtyard door. It's a pity. It was a pity that she couldn't let this be end up in the same way. If she could, Madame Ruan wanted to bury her with her own hands. In the end, family scandals shouldn't be aired in public. Even if Master hates her at this moment, for the sake of face, he won't attack her at this time. He also won't let Madame do it. The mother still said in a low voice. I know. I'm just worried that a long night will cause trouble. That's impossible, right? Master said that he caught her personally. How can he forgive her? Any man wouldn't be able to stand this kind of thing. But mother, you also know how powerful this B*TCH is. Sometimes she's evil and bewitching. It even makes people suspect that she's not human. If she couldn't see her die with her own eyes, the woman's heart would never be completely calm. The mother also felt evil. She kept praying in her heart. Although she said that, Madame Ruan made up a reason to kill so many people. Then, she went to report to Ruan Ruizhong. The so-called reasons were all for the people outside to hear. Everyone knew that it was most likely false. It was just an excuse that they used to cover up their shame. just like Emperor Lucheng in the past. He was clearly the one who killed the imperial noble consort, but he said that the imperial noble consort died of blood loss during childbirth. The death of the imperial noble consort made him furious and killed all the servants. It was so clumsy. However, he was the emperor. No one dared to say anything about the excuse he used. Other people were different. They could imagine 100 truths in their minds. Madame Ruan knew what the situation was, but she didn't care at all. Could her life be worse than before? Now the Ruan family was surrounded by rumors. Everything was caused by that B***TCH's B***TCH. When the mother and daughter disappeared, the rumors would fade over time. When everyone forgot about it, it would get better. Although her heart wasn't completely calm, it was much more relaxed. Her two uncles knelt on the stone road under the hot sun. She didn't even lift her eyelids. It wasn't just these two people who should be kneeling here. However, there were some things that her father-in-law would never allow to be exposed. Madame Ruan reported the matter unhurriedly and stood obediently with her eyes lowered. Juan Ruizhong just rested for a while. He wanted to take a good rest. However, this body wasn't something he could do whatever he wanted. His current situation was really beyond his ability. She glanced at her daughter-in-law. In the past, because of the difference between men and women, even a daughter-in-law wouldn't easily look at them. Perhaps because of this, she repeatedly missed the opportunity to discover some truths. She was indeed older than Madame Wei, but she looked like she was 20 years older than Madame Wei. Why did she endure for so long without revealing it? If she had revealed it earlier, he wouldn't have been so miserably deceived by Madame Wei. Thinking of this, anger rose from his heart again. He took 2 deep breaths. He repeatedly warned himself not to be angry. Don't be angry. If he died. Occasionally, he felt that it would be better if he died like this. It was shameful to live. However, if he died, he might be directly drowned in dirty water. Therefore, no matter what, he had to deal with the matter cleanly. Madame Ruan didn't know his thoughts. Otherwise, she would have mocked him. Madame Wei hid it too well. She didn't have any conclusive evidence to use against her. Many things were deliberately revealed to her. It was specious. In addition, she had always been generous with money and never treated others harshly. If she revealed it, would she end up well? She still had a child and a maternal family. It wasn't worth it to fight to the death. I'm not worried when you do things. Right now the family is in a mess. You should put in more effort. He paused. If you can't handle it, ask your sisters-in-law to help you. I'm not worried when you do things. This was Madame Wei's patent. Hearing these words now, it was not just a little disgusting. What did he mean by asking his sisters-in-law to help if she couldn't handle it? He was worried that she would monopolize the power and become the second Madame Wei. No matter what she thought in her heart, she didn't show it at all. Right now, she really didn't have much interest in the power of this family. Father-in-law, please don't worry. It's just that this daughter-in-law sees that you don't seem to be well. Are you tired because of the political affairs? You have to take care of yourself. She found an excuse for him and built a ladder. Naturally, he went along with it. I'm indeed busy with political affairs. I need to rest in the afternoon. If someone forget it, you can go. Yes. Juan Ruizhong leaned on the couch drowsily, but it was really difficult to sleep soundly. Just at this time, Juan Fengfei came to see him. Because he had a daughter when he was old, he pampered and doted on her like a precious treasure. He gave her the best of everything. Because of her excellence, he pampered her even more. Even if she was particularly stubborn towards Jin Qinwang, he still indulged her. Because of her, the whole family was not at peace. He also didn't harshly criticize her. But the result was he didn't even know whose child she was. Scram, make her scram for me. If she dares to take half a step out of the courtyard, immediately beat her to death. This lowly child was the most powerful evidence of that slut wearing a green hat on his head. It was his biggest stain. Juan Ruizhong was really thinking about how to make her directly die. Juan Fengfei heard Juan Ruizhong's words. Although she didn't care about this father anymore, but for her own sake, she was still willing to put down her status and be a filial daughter. But now, it seemed that it wasn't a question of whether she wanted to please him or not, but rather whether he would let her continue to live. even if her heart was higher than the sky. But without the support of the corresponding power, in the end, her life could only be as thin as paper. Right now she was trapped everywhere and hit a wall everywhere. If this incompetent father abandoned her, what else could she do? At this moment, Wan Fengfei couldn't help but tremble with fear. What did her mother do? Not only was she grounded, the people around her were all beaten to death, and now she was implicated. According to her father's current state, she was afraid that saying a few soft words and crying and begging would not be effective. After standing for a moment, she prepared to go back first. Along the way, the servants were evading her and pointing fingers. Her face was unmoved, but her eyes were filled with darkness. After hearing about Wan Fengfei's treatment, Madame Ruan, who was busy reorganizing, called people and even brought her unmarried children, who were also in trouble because of Wan Fengfei's marriage, directly to Wan Fengfei's courtyard. Didn't you envy her for having countless good things in the past? Now as long as you like it, you can move it all back. Wan Fengfei suppressed her anger. Sister-in-law, what do you mean? What do I mean? Haven't you always been smart? Can't you understand such simple words? Then I'll make it clear to you. Right now, I'm bringing people to snatch things. Move it for me. Even if the final dust had not settled, she no longer had so many scruples. At this point, if her father-in-law still let that be *tch turn things around, it could only be said that he was not a man. As for her, she had already completely offended her, so she was no longer afraid of itching. You dare? Why wouldn't I dare? Right now, the one in charge of the family was this madam. It could be said that it was human nature to take advantage of the situation. Little aunt is so generous today, so I won't be polite. The young girl who followed her said with a smile. She rolled her eyes and directly barged into the room, quickly carrying out a jewelry box. Wan Fengfei took a look and saw that it was her favorite box. Naturally, it was filled with her favorite things. Basically, they were all very valuable. Without thinking, she wanted to snatch it back. Unfortunately, the girl's people rushed up and blocked her. As for her, after her eldest sister-in-law and the others came in, she shrank into a corner. She could not even get close to it. At first, the girl was a little scared. Seeing this scene, she slightly raised her chin and laughed. Little aunt ruined my marriage, so just treat it as compensation for me. Although I find it inconceivable that a disfigured and broken thing like you can be a prince's concubine, I don't envy you for serving an old man. I think you won't lack these things in the future. Wan Fengfei's eyes were red. Seeing this group of people begin to move her things, she gritted her teeth in hatred. She aimed at a nearby vase, rushed up, wrapped it up, and smashed it on the ground. With a bang, it broke into pieces. Even if her things were smashed, she would not let others benefit from it. This movement shocked many people. Taking advantage of the short time they were stunned, Wan Fengfei smashed a few more treasures on the cabinet next to her. It was the kind that would completely break after being smashed. Madame Wan hurriedly stepped forward. She was not polite at all. She grabbed her hair and gave her a big slap. Wan Fengfei's body was out of control. She slammed into the cabinet and started bleeding. Unfortunately, she did not receive any pity. Come, watch this money-losing and prodigal thing for me. Receiving the signal, two big and rough women rolled up their sleeves and came forward, carrying her to the side. Seeing her girl being bullied like this, a maid felt distressed. But as soon as she stood up, she was slapped back. The others did not dare to make a move. Wan Fengfei's hatred was monstrous at this time. Unfortunately, as soon as she made a move, she was pinched by the two women openly and secretly. How could a delicate girl like her resist? Madame Ruan saw all of this. The things on this little *tch's body belong to whoever takes them off. When the two women heard this, their eyes lit up. Although Wan Fengfei did not have many things on her, they were all exquisite. They were rough laborers, and only got a little bit of money every month. They would only get a little reward during the New Year and festivals. All of them added up to 20 or 30 taels of silver, which would make them smile from ear to ear. They could not earn as much money as Wan Fengfei's bracelet in their lifetime. Now it was a windfall from the sky. They were like two wolves pouncing on a little sheep. They were worried that others would take a share of the soup, so they acted quickly and ruthlessly. Wan Fangfei naturally suffered. Her hair was messy, her belt was torn off, her hands were red and swollen, and the pearl repair shoes on her feet were directly taken off. She looked like she had been bullied. The others wanted to go forward, but unfortunately, the things had been divided up. They could only think of other things. However, their master did not say anything, so they did not dare to steal. They only hoped that their master could leak some through the cracks. That would be enough for them to be ecstatic. Madame Ruan looked at Wan Fangfei with a smile. It was not bad that she did not see the miserable appearance of that B***tch. Wan Fangfei met her gaze. There was no longer any suppression in her eyes, which made people feel frightened. She calmed down. You really are not a good thing. You really have the same virtue as your B***tch mother. You are used to putting on an act. You will die a horrible death. Wan Fangfei said like a ghost. Madame Wan sneered. Then I will wait and see how you, a stray dog, will turn over. Mother, there are so many good things. It is not good for us to take them alone. Why don't we let the other brothers and sisters take them together? My daughter is a director. You can get someone to call them. As long as they are willing, they will all come. Therefore, not long after, more people joined the ranks of dividing the things. Among them, most of them were on good terms with Wan Fangfei. However, it was hard to find one who was wholeheartedly loyal to her. Wan Fangfei was used to being surrounded by stars, and was used to pretending. From time to time, she would show a high and mighty attitude, which would naturally hurt them. Over time, a seed had been planted in their hearts. When she was surrounded by rumors, she could not leave the house, her marriage was ruined, her friends left one by one, and the culprit was her, Wan Fangfei. Naturally, she would completely explode. Such a jinx, it would not be too much to skin her alive. Perhaps there were one or two who were sincerely sad, and wanted to defend her. However, before they could say anything, they were suppressed by the others who found the spearhead. Human nature was selfish. No one wanted to be ostracized by everyone because of her. They could only keep silent. However, in Wan Fangfei's eyes, they were a group of ungrateful wolves. She was so good to them. Sure enough, there was no good thing in this world. Everything that could be moved was moved away, including the clothes. Only a few pieces were left for her. Her clothes were all brand new, and had only been bought not long ago. On Wan Fangfei's body, other than some special ones, she could not find any clothes that she had worn in the first year. After it was completely quiet, she realized that all the people who served her had also been called away. The courtyard of the temporary residence was not as big as the residence in the capital. However, Wan Fangfei's courtyard was not small. Now it was empty. Wan Fangfei shrank in the same place for a long time. Her head leaned back and her eyes were a little empty. Looking at the empty house, she did not seem to understand how it ended up like this. She was humiliated outside, but her position at home was not shaken. How did it change in the blink of an eye? Those so-called nephews and nieces were like kittens in front of her. When she was happy, she would tease them, and they would meow obediently. Now they dared to step on her head and wave their claws at her. Outside, she was not as strong as others. She could adjust her mentality, endure the humiliation, and find an opportunity to take revenge. However, these people at home were like ants in her eyes. Now they were collectively opposing her. The bigger the difference, the more resentful it was in her heart. She got up and rushed out. However, when she reached the entrance of the courtyard, she realized that the door had been locked from the outside. She smashed the door and shouted for her to get out. Young lady, calm down. Master said that if you take half a step out of the courtyard, you will be beaten to death. The first madam is doing this for your own good. She is just worried that you will be impulsive and lose your life. It is not worth it. Outside, an old woman was eating melon seeds while persuading her. In exchange, Wan Fangfei cursed. No matter what Wan Fangfei's mentality was with her education, she had never scolded anyone. Perhaps it should be said that she was smart. The skill of scolding people was self-taught. She was not like a shrew. However, her viciousness and insidiousness were really unmatched by ordinary people. Everyone who heard it was speechless. The first madam was right. It was true that one could know a person for a long time without understanding their heart. The most vicious person in the Ruan family was the kindest person in the past. Because Ruan Ruizhong had not said how to deal with it, Madame Ruan did not say anything when she heard the servant's report. She was a filial daughter-in-law. Now that her father-in-law was resting, she naturally would not bother him with such a small matter. As for those who took the things, they were very nervous. They knew how much their grandfather loved their aunt. Now he was angry, but what if he regretted it? What would they do if he punished them later? However, the first Madame Ruan assured them that if anything really happened, she would bear the responsibility alone. As the saying goes, the law does not punish the majority. Their grandfather would never punish them. After lunch, Lu Qingdi sent someone to take Ruan Ruizhong's pulse and check his physical condition. After all, he was his right-hand man. Whether it was out of sincerity or just to save face, Lu Qingdi sent someone to take Ruan Ruizhong's pulse. The imperial physician took Ruan Ruizhong's pulse, but his heart skipped a beat. Why was he angry and depressed at the same time? There were also signs of a stroke. No matter how he looked at it, it did not look good. What had happened? However, no matter what happened, it had nothing to do with him. It was fine as long as he did his duty. He wrote a prescription, gave a few words of advice, and returned to report. Son, daughter-in-law, grandson, granddaughter-in-law, granddaughter and great-grandson. A large group of people surrounded him and carefully served him. Although it was not as comfortable as Madame Wei serving him, looking at this large family with so many children and grandchildren, his heart was more or less relieved. However, thinking of what that lewd woman Madame Wei said, not only did she touch his son, she even had her eyes on his grandson. That little bit of relief instantly shattered into pieces. He looked at his children and grandchildren suspiciously, as if he wanted to see if they had an affair with Madame Wei from time to time. However, no matter how he looked, they still had a respectful and humble appearance. Get out, all of you, get out. The first Madame Ruan originally wanted to take this opportunity to talk about Ruan Fangfei and test Ruan Ruizhong. However, seeing this scene, she swallowed the words back down. Because she heard that Ruan Ruizhong did not sleep well, she added a sedative medicine to the prescription. After Ruan Ruizhong drank the medicine, he became drowsy. He was basically in this state for the entire afternoon. No matter how chaotic and bloody the Ruan family was, the Luo family was full of laughter and laughter. It was probably really rare to be so happy. It could be said that this was the only day in their lives. They did not leave after lunch and continued to play. Even if they were covered in sweat, their usual chastity and virtuous appearance was completely gone. At most, they would make fun of each other. Not to mention, even if they were sworn enemies, they didn't seem to want to fight to the death at this time. It was not until the middle of the afternoon, when it was almost dusk, that someone began to say goodbye. Although they were reluctant to leave, it was indeed not early. It should be known that the previous banquets basically ended after lunch. Jingwan asked someone to bring water. Although it was not impossible to take a bath at this time, it was still possible to tidy up their appearance. At least when they went out, others would not be able to see anything wrong with their appearance. After tidying up, each and every one of them became a graceful noble lady. Some of them looked at each other and revealed a tacit smile. After sending off the last guest, Jingwan was also able to take a break. Although it was not very tiring, as the host, she had to look for this and that and accompany almost all of them. This was the first time this kind of situation had happened. Besides being at ease, she was also a little uncomfortable. She arranged for a bath early and let Mama Gong relax her muscles and bones. She felt that she was full of energy again. This banquet, it's better to hold less of it in the future. Mama Gong heard this and smiled lightly. That's what young lady did. Look at the banquets of other families. They are not as busy as young lady. This should be considered the first banquet Jingwan hosted after coming to the capital. It was obviously very successful. Actually, I had a lot of fun myself. Alas, the more I live, the more backward I am. Young lady, what are you talking about? You should be at the age to have fun. Isn't that so? I'm carefree all day and basically have nothing to do. Naturally, I'll have fun. Mama, I didn't have an afternoon nap today, so I'm a little sleepy. I'll take a nap now. Wake me up 15 minutes before dinner. As Jingwan spoke, she let out a small yawn. Her half-closed eyes overflowed with some physiological tears. Her pair of eyes were like limpid autumn waters, and were especially seductive. Jingwan fell asleep very quickly. Mama Gong gently adjusted her sleeping position. If she slept with her arms pressed down, it would be uncomfortable for her to sleep for a long time. Mama Gong then covered her with a thin silk blanket before leaving. After that, Qingju came in with a round fan and fanned Jingwan unhurriedly. She was not in a hurry, and made sure that there was a trace of cool breeze. The maidservant woke her up before dinner, and asked her to drink some water to wake her up. After that, she would be fine after dinner. During this time, Sun Yijia came by once, but seeing that she was sleeping, she did not disturb her. After that, Jingwan did the same as usual. On the other hand, Luo Peishan began to be busy again because of the matters in the south. It seemed that he would not be able to sleep until later. Because they had been eating together recently, Jingwan overheard him talking about water conservancy. Jingwan did not know much about it. If she really wanted to talk about something, it would probably be about emergency rescue and post-disaster resettlement. She could still talk on paper, based on the things she learned in her previous life. However, as far as she knew, the Qi Yuan dynasty, or to be more precise, the previous dynasty, had a set of perfect methods to deal with floods. Jingwan never underestimated the wisdom of these people. However, she could look back at it carefully. After all, it was more than thousands of years of accumulation. She should be able to list out some useful things. With regards to Li Hongyuan's second visit, Jingwan only raised her eyes to look at him, then closed them again, and went back to sleep. Li Hongyuan's main purpose of coming tonight was to look for Luo Peishan. However, since he was already in the Luo family's territory, how could he not come to see Jingwan? He hugged her, kissed her, and rubbed her ears. He guessed that Luo Peishan had finished reading the things he wrote, and thoroughly understood it. I have something to do tonight, so I won't accompany you. As if I want to be with you. Jingwan muttered in a low voice. Li Hongyuan smiled and kissed her forehead. Then I will go first. Jingwan watched him go out the door. In fact, her heart was still very slippery. No matter what, it was better to say something than not to say anything at all. She felt that everything she did was right and proper. Jingwan wouldn't let her imagination run wild now, but his attitude, at least, showed his respect. Luo Peishan was still carefully looking through the things Li Hongyuan wrote. His heart was full of admiration. Jin Qinhuang really wasn't simple. The things that the emperor didn't know about, he was clear about. And the things that everyone was still thinking about, he had already thought about, all aspects, clearly organized. And the ideas were all implemented. Just as he was pondering over some places that could be added in some details, he inadvertently looked up and saw Li Hongyuan walk in. Just like the last time he came in so quietly. Luo Peishan silently cursed. A dignified Qinhuang, being the gentleman on the beam. He didn't have the least bit of embarrassment. But since he wanted to come over, why did he need to let someone show him the booklet in advance? At this time, what could he be busy with? However, if he knew that Li Hongyuan took advantage of this time to break into his good granddaughter's room, who knows what kind of expression he would have? He got up and turned around from behind the desk. Greetings to Wang Ye. Dispense with the formalities. Li Hongyuan sat down at the side. Luo Darren has finished reading. What do you think? Is there anything you need to add? This was an old man. It wasn't like he was close to Wan Wan. So naturally, he did business according to the rules, and didn't say anything superfluous. Facing proper business, Luo Peishan also didn't hesitate, and directly expressed his own opinions and views. The two people started to discuss this matter. As for the matter of serving tea and water, Annie took over. As for Luo Peishan's manservant, he was still a little dazed because of Jin Qinhuang's visit in the middle of the night. It must be said that the last time Li Hongyuan visited Luo Peishan in the middle of the night, he directly made him faint. Because Li Hongyuan's writing was very comprehensive and detailed, there were very few places that needed to be added. Therefore, the discussion didn't take long, less than an hour. Luo Peishan's appreciation for Li Hongyuan rose to admiration. With this ability, if the other princes were to be pinched together, they would be far from being able to catch up. The way he handled matters was shrewd and ruthless, skillful and skillful, as if the universe was in his grasp. To say something disrespectful, even Luqing Emperor was far inferior. If this kind of person failed in the struggle for the throne, it simply didn't make sense. However, thinking of his reputation on the surface, it can be imagined how deeply this person hid. Li Hongyuan took a sip of tea. I will have to trouble Luo Darren with the rest. Luo Peishan pointed at the memorial. Wang Ye didn't think of submitting it yourself? Letting this official monopolize such a big merit? Li Hongyuan glanced at him. What merit does Ben Wang need? That's true. This world belongs to His Highness, so why would he care about this little bit of fame? Moreover, when His Highness handed over the memorial, His Majesty's first reaction would probably be to question whose credit His Highness had stolen. Then, he would suspect His Highness's intentions. He wouldn't even think that his own son actually had this ability. Li Hongyuan declined to comment. He never wanted something like a false reputation. Rising, Ben Wang will take his leave. Luo Peishan hurriedly followed suit, respectfully sending off Wang Ye. When the study was quiet again, Luo Peishan's gaze once again fell on the memorial. After a moment he sat down, opened the memorial that had been edited, and began to transcribe it. Tomorrow, he would present it to the emperor. His servant came in to refill his tea. Forget everything that happened tonight. Luo Peishan didn't raise his head, nor did his hands stop moving, but the servant understood and hurriedly responded. This matter wasn't a joke. Li Hongyuan went to the Ruan residence again. Perhaps he had a premonition, but he didn't rest. At the same time, he didn't leave anyone to serve him. The servants only thought that he had a knot in his heart, and didn't say anything. After he got angry, they didn't dare to stay. Seeing Li Hongyuan appear, Ruan Ruizhong was surprised and surprised. However, in his heart, he felt that it was somewhat within his expectations. Greetings to Wang Ye. Li Hongyuan calmly sat down, then casually said, You may rise. After that, Li Hongyuan didn't speak, and Ruan Ruizhong stood with his hands hanging down. Sit down. If you continue like this, people who don't know will think that Ben Wang is cold-blooded, punishing a frail old man to stand. Many thanks to Wang Ye. Ruan Ruizhong ignored the other content in his words. Doesn't the Grand Secretary want to say something to Ben Wang? Li Hongyuan supported his head with one hand, with a bit of leisure and laziness. Ruan Ruizhong finally raised his head to look at him. I can only say that Wang Ye is truly amazing, deceiving everyone. In reality before, he had a lot to say about the mastermind behind this. The most important point was, since he knew about these things, why didn't he tell him in private? Why did he have to make the Ruan residence like this? Did he, Ruan Ruizhong, offend him? That's right, he already thought that all of this might be the person Wei Shi spoke of. Seeing Li Hongyuan, he didn't ask anything. According to this person's temperament and style of doing things, he might not tell you even if you asked. Even if he did, the answer might be I'm happy. Master, the person has been brought over. And Yi's voice sounded at the door. Soon after, Wei Shi, who was dressed in an exceptionally flirtatious and enchanting manner, walked in. That was an attire that Ruan Ruizhong had never seen before. After a moment of amazement, her face was completely black like the bottom of a pot. Not only because after everything was torn apart, she became unscrupulous, but also because her eyes were staring straight at Jin Qinhuang. Wei Shi didn't even give Ruan Ruizhong a glance, as she seductively greeted Li Hongyuan. As expected, it is Wang Ye. To speak of Wang Ye's methods, Chenfu admires Wang Ye from the bottom of her heart. Li Hongyuan looked at her lightly. Your ability isn't that great, to be so easily ruined. Ben Wang originally thought that he would need to spend more energy. Wei Shi's deep feelings stiffened, then she smiled flirtatiously. Wang Ye is in the dark, Chenfu is in the light. Wang Ye knows Chenfu very well. Chenfu knows nothing about Wang Ye. Wang Ye acted suddenly. Chenfu was naturally caught unprepared. If there were precautions, the result might not be like this. https://www.vikin com/11/11807/66532235. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bikago mobile reading website: bicken.com. Chapter 206. You've been hiding in the capital for 10 to 20 years, so you should have understood the various powers, but you don't know anything about this prince. This isn't the first time something has happened to Ruan Fangfei. You should know that as Ruan Fangfei's biggest backer, how could this prince let you go? You didn't have enough preparation, but you said that this prince made a sudden move. Is this your ability? Madame Wei's face turned green and white for a moment, but she quickly smiled again. It's all because this subject's skills are inferior. Now that I've fallen into the prince's hands, I'll naturally be at his disposal. As she spoke, she winked at Li Hongyuan. Juan Ruizhong was so angry that his veins were popping. No matter what, she was still his wife, but she was actually seducing another man in front of him. However, after hearing their conversation, he knew that this cheap woman had another identity, so he could only suppress his anger. Madame Wei continued. Can this subject ask 2 questions, Prince? When did Prince notice this subject's wife? Why did you notice this subject's wife? It's reasonable to say that as a woman of the inner residence, you shouldn't be treated differently by Prince. You raised such a good daughter. Is it strange that this prince noticed you? His eyes still didn't have the slightest emotion. Belittling someone might hurt, but to have nothing and be completely disregarded was even more uncomfortable for some people. The more arrogant one was, the easier it was to become this kind of person. Madame Wei happened to be this kind of person, but she restrained herself very well, so outsiders couldn't see it. Madame Wei's lips moved. Indeed, her daughter had targeted this person from the beginning. Because of this person, she would implicate herself. What a simple connection. At that time, she still doted on Ruan Fangfei. Since her daughter had taken a fancy to him, then no matter who the other party was, it was the other party's honor. She had never given up on investigating the princes, especially after he was bestowed the title of prince. However, Li Hongyuan hid too deeply, and was too cautious in doing things. He didn't reveal any clues, so naturally, she didn't have the chance to find any clues. 1 year, 2 years, 4 years later, the results of the investigation on Li Hongyuan remained the same. After all, she had limited energy and manpower, so she withdrew her investigation on Li Hongyuan and allowed her daughter to get close to him. You've been investigating this prince for 4 years. If it wasn't for Ruan Fangfei, you probably would have been able to find some clues. Before the age of 16, Li Hongyuan had been in the palace. At that time, Madame Wei had already taken root in the palace. Even if she had memories of her previous life, she had too little to do with Madame Wei. For no reason, Li Hongyuan would not easily suspect her. If they knew that Li Hongyuan was not a good-for-nothing, but a man-eating ferocious beast that was hibernating in the dark, not to mention letting Ruan Fangfei get close, they would definitely make her stay far away. After all, any young lady did not need a reason to stay away from the King of Hell. Then again, Ruan Fangfei had fallen in love with Li Hongyuan when she was young. She allowed her to get close to him as a means to test him. If she really had that ambition, how could she not be tempted in the face of the power of the cabinet chief? Therefore, this was actually an unsolvable situation. The Wei clan had lost miserably because of a single move. Prince is wise and mighty. This subject is ashamed of her inferiority. Speaking of which, to deal with a person like this subject, the sooner you make your move, the better. However, Prince has delayed for a few years. Why is that? It was really tiring to deal with people who did not act according to common sense. Because your daughter is very useful, and your threat is within a controllable range. This prince does not mind keeping valuable things. Would Li Hongyuan tell her? Naturally not. Other people were not qualified to know about Jingwan's matters. Speaking of which, Ruan Fangfei had told her about Jingwan's matters, but she did not believe it at all, and had long thrown it to the back of her mind. Now she did not connect it at all. Other than accidentally, who would think of this kind of truth? Even if Wan Fangfei had guessed it, and Li Hongyuan had personally admitted it, would she really believe it? Most likely, she would think that Li Hongyuan was deliberately angering her. Rational people would pay attention to evidence and reason. Luo Peishan and old Madame Luo easily believed Li Hongyuan's words because they were emotional, and thought that Jingwan could be fancied by anyone. Seeing that Li Hongyuan did not continue to speak, the Wei clan maintained her seductive attitude. Then now, how does Prince plan to deal with this subject? This subject has heard that there is a mother and daughter in Prince's courtyard in the capital. Although she was defeated, she still admires Prince. I don't know if she would have the honor to serve Prince. She will definitely let Prince experience what is called happiness in the world. Her body seemed to be slightly rubbing and twisting slightly. She even stuck out her tongue and licked her red lips. It was extremely seductive. Wei clan had learned the art of seduction. Of course, it was just some small movements of her body, and some external small things, such as aphrodisiac and the like, that made people feel that she was more attractive than ordinary people. In addition, she had learned the art of sleeping. Generally, the men who touched her always felt that they could be happier with her than with other women. Therefore, without a bit of willpower, it was really difficult to get rid of her. Wan Ruizhong's sons fell for her probably because of this reason. Coupled with the taboo against morality, it made them, who had released their hearts, even more unable to give up. Wei clan was a person with a strong desire. She had never wronged herself. When Wan Ruizhong couldn't satisfy her, it was natural for her to have an affair. The reason why she didn't use similar methods on Wan Ruizhong was that she was worried that he was a little old. If she used too much of his body, he would die young. Then, the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. After all, Wan Ruizhong had a promising future. When she first married him, he had the possibility of becoming the cabinet chief. Such a person could be squeezed out a lot of useful things. However, this man was very conceited. She could achieve her goal without using seduction to keep him. Therefore, in front of him, she was happy to be a good wife and mother. She was now seducing Li Hongyuan. She was confident that as long as she pulled Li Hongyuan to bed, not only could she save her life, but she could also get something that she didn't even dare to think about before. At Wan Ruizhong's age, he basically didn't have any desire, so Wei clan's seduction wouldn't work on him. However, they were still husband and wife in name. She dared to be so brazen, and not put him in her eyes. Finally, he couldn't bear it anymore and slammed the table. "Slut, you have big guts." At this time, she still called herself this official's wife. Was she trying to make him feel disgusted? "Your Highness, you also saw it. This woman is so wanton and dirty. If your Highness touches her, wouldn't you dirty yourself? This official will have someone drown her right now to prevent her from harming others." Wei clan didn't take Wan Ruizhong seriously at all. Her attention was always on Li Hongyuan. Step by step she approached. The closer she got, the more excited she became. Such a handsome, strong, and capable man aroused her unprecedented desire to conquer. It was a drug that only worked on men, but it seemed to have affected her. At this moment, Madame Wei really looked like a bitch in heat. Luo Peishan was so angry that he almost vomited blood. No matter what, he couldn't let this lewd woman enter Jin Qinhuang's eyes. Otherwise, according to Jin Qinhuang's usual style, he wouldn't be able to clean up this woman, who brought him extraordinary shame and humiliation. If he had known earlier, he would have killed her from the start. He hurriedly stepped forward and tried to pull away the woman's carriage that was already close to Jin Qinhuang. Faster than words could tell, Li Hongyuan, who was sitting still, suddenly kicked. First, it was her calf. Taking advantage of her body falling forward uncontrollably, he kicked straight for her heart without mercy. Wei clan, whose hand had already reached out to her, flew backwards and fell to the ground. Wei clan spat out a mouthful of blood. She felt that her lungs seemed to have shifted. Wei clan's martial arts weren't weak, but in the end, she was restricted by her identity. She couldn't brazenly practice martial arts. In this matter, if she didn't advance, she would fall back. Because compared to Li Hongyuan, she was still lacking a lot. It was difficult to avoid. Juan Ruizhong was stunned on the spot. Things happened in a flash. He didn't seem to have reacted to what had happened, and the scene had already become like this. He looked at the woman who was vomiting blood on the ground, and then looked at Li Hongyuan, who didn't seem to have done anything. Suddenly, he flung his sleeves and sat back down. When he cared about you, he would hold you like a pearl or a treasure. When he hated you, the more miserable you were, the more delightful it was to watch. When Juan Ruizhong married her, he was already over 50 years old. He had already passed the age of admiring someone. Therefore, Juan Ruizhong cared more about other things than love. As a result, it was very easy to harden his heart. Wei Clan's chest was burning with pain, but she stubbornly looked at Li Hongyuan. Just now he kept looking at her. She thought that he was just like other men. As long as she used a little trick, she could easily make him fall in love with her. But now, after looking carefully, she found that his gaze was frighteningly clear. There wasn't the slightest bit of desire. It could be seen that the medicine she prepared didn't work. He looked at her like he was looking at a clown. Her actions in his eyes were like listening to a funny joke. Wei Clan's gaze lowered. She couldn't help but cough twice, which made her heart feel even more uncomfortable. When she raised her head again, her gaze was even more heated. It was a naked desire to conquer, as expected of the man who secretly controls the universe. How can I use ordinary methods to deal with you? That's simply an insult to you. Wan Fengfei is indeed your child. You seduced another man in front of your husband. Wan Fengfei, as an unmarried woman, dared to undress and recommend herself to a man. It's simply the brothel's loss that she didn't live in it. Before she was disfigured, this prince didn't even look at her. Someone like you, huh? Wei Clan's madam didn't care at all, as she wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. In terms of serving men, even if there were 10 of them, they still wouldn't be able to compare to this subject's hands and mouth, let alone other things. However, Fengfei admires you. Those in the know all thought that Fengfei was blind, but it turns out that her taste is very good. Whether it was derogatory or complimentary, Li Hongyuan's emotions didn't fluctuate at all. Li Hongyuan turned to look at Juan Ruizhong and said with interest, "Did the Grand Secretary suffer 8 lifetimes of bad luck to meet this mother and daughter pair? Being played in circles and deceived so miserably, what thoughts do you have?" This prince originally thought that when you learned the truth, you would probably die. Looking at your current situation, it seems that your endurance isn't bad. Juan Ruizhong's face was ashen. Even if he knew that Li Hongyuan wasn't good for nothing, he still couldn't change his opinion of him. He was too sinister, always rubbing salt on other people's wounds, but he couldn't do anything to him. How exactly does Wang Yi want to deal with this woman, and who exactly is she? Ah, a woman who shares a bed with you. You're asking this prince who she is? Juan Ruizhong felt like a fishbone was stuck in his throat. After a while he struggled to open his mouth. This subject is ignorant. Wang Yi, please do not be stingy with your guidance. For Juan Ruizhong to admit that he was ignorant, it still required a bit of courage. At the very least, it wasn't easy to cross that hurdle in his heart. But thinking about his current situation, it seemed that there was nothing he couldn't admit. Since the Grand Secretary is so sincere, this prince naturally won't be stingy. Bring it in. Annie came in from outside and handed a flat box with a lock to Juan Ruizhong. Right now, Juan Ruizhong didn't have much leeway to think. Regardless of whether the things inside were something he could see or not, Weishur was now a thorn in his flesh. If he didn't get rid of it, he wouldn't be happy. If Jin Qinhuang didn't personally tell him, even if he saw these things, it was possible for Jin Qinhuang to hold them tightly in the palm of his hand. He wouldn't turn back. The key was on top. Juan Ruizhong took some time to open it because his hands were trembling. Not only was there a physical problem, there was also a psychological factor. Even if he didn't turn back, he was worried that he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Juan Ruizhong took out the things inside. It was a stack of letters. Juan Ruizhong started to read from the first one. There were more and less contents. Juan Ruizhong read faster and faster, and his hands trembled faster and faster. After reading less than half, he couldn't read anymore. His hands loosened and the things scattered on the ground. The family is unfortunate, The family is unfortunate, ah. Juan Ruizhong's expression was dejected, and then tears flowed down his old face. And Weisher, who was lying on the ground and couldn't get up, naturally saw part of the contents of the letters. Her pupils shrunk, and she couldn't help but clench her fists. Because the letters were all the same, she was able to determine at first glance that these were all copies and not originals. But her basis was only the letters. It could be seen that whether it was the handwriting or the special symbols and seals, they were all exactly the same. But just this alone was enough to make her heart jump. She knew that Jin Qinhuang had a lot of her things, but in her view, there shouldn't be anything wrong with the information that she sent out. Now it seemed that what was called nothing wrong, it was obviously something that was extremely wrong. She sent it out, but it was all under the eyes of others. The reason why there was no mistake was because the other party didn't stop her. Crawling forward on her stomach, she pulled open the letter. Mainly looking at the date on it, the earliest was more than 4 years ago. It was about the time when Wan Fangfei dealt with Li Hongyuan's fiancé. Wang Ye's method is good. You sent out the information through different channels. At the beginning, it wasn't all intercepted. This situation lasted for about 3 months. With regards to Weisher's praise, Li Hongyuan seemed to be a little dissatisfied with his own results. Weisher coughed twice. No matter what kind of Jin Qinhuang was, this infuriating nature still didn't change. The Yuan family wasn't an aristocratic family. In terms of background, perhaps it couldn't be compared to the Luo family. But they had served the country since the founding of Qi Yuan. When it came to Yuan Ruizhong, it could be said that they had reached their peak. The Yuan family was loyal to the emperor and loved the country. Yuan Ruizhong took the country as his own responsibility. Who knew how many times the people who slept with him had made him wear a green hat? His daughter wasn't his own. These matters, in the present, were already insignificant. He slid down to kneel on the ground. Wang Ye, this official is guilty. This official is guilty and deserves 10,000 deaths. You want to ask for forgiveness, but the target shouldn't be Ben Wang. Wan Ruizhong's body stiffened slightly. This official is willing to serve Wang Ye like a dog and horse, asking Wang Ye to give me a way out. More than half of the information on those letters had passed through his hands. Although they had been stolen by Weisher, Weisher was his legal wife. They had shared the same bed for 2 years. If he said that he knew nothing about her actions, not to mention outsiders, he would not believe it. In other people's shoes, he would not believe it either. Once this matter was exposed, he wouldn't be able to escape the crime of treason with the enemy. That was a great crime that involved the confiscation of his property and the extermination of his family. Therefore, his personal honor and disgrace were really not worth mentioning. After the heaviest blow, Wan Ruizhong became abnormally clear-headed. His muddled brain started to work again. The current situation absolutely didn't allow him to be unable to recover. If he didn't think of a way to reverse the situation, he would be the biggest sinner of the Wan family. In the future, when he went underground, what would he use to face his ancestors? No matter how stupid he was, he should know the true face of this Jin Qinhuang. He had long known about the matter but concealed it. He knew the whole story from beginning to end. Then everything still had room to maneuver. From beginning to end, he was neutral and unwilling to take sides, because he didn't really think highly of that prince. Now, he only knew the tip of the iceberg of Jin Qinhuang's unknown side, but it let him see the potential of ascending to the throne. In addition, he had grasped his own fatal weakness. The right time, the right place, and the right people were all present. Then, there was nothing to assist him. Wan Ruizhong, Ben Wang acknowledges your ability. But someone like you who is about to lie in the coffin, who knows when you will really lie in the coffin? Is it worth the lives of the entire Wan family? There are so many capable people with lofty ideals in the world. Wan Ruizhong was silent. He knew that what Li Hongyuan said was true. Not to mention others, even among the officials in the court, there were many who secretly pledged their allegiance to him and worked for him. Other people aside, his recent archenemy Luo Peishan was certainly already helping him. Jin Qinhuang was his future grandson-in-law. Helping him was a matter of course. The lives of this official's entire family, in Wang Ye's eyes are like ants. But to this official, it is as important as 10,000 caddies, even more important than life. Wang Ye is currently in a period of dormancy. Rather than borrowing other people's hands to report this matter to His Majesty, it is better to be magnanimous and let off a group of ants. This official will not hesitate to die 10,000 times for Wang Ye. Although Wang Ye can find countless people to work for him, once the position of the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet is vacant, there will be a scramble from all sides. Even if the person who finally sits in this position is Wang Ye's loyal follower. Not to mention that there will be a lot of incidents in the process. To adapt to this position and handle things with ease, there will also be a process. In addition, the other 3 people in the cabinet all have their own standpoints. Wanting to sit in this position is not easy. It is better to do it like it is now. For Wang Ye, there is no loss, and it also reduces unnecessary trouble and possible unforeseen events. It is said that the Grand Secretary is a capable person. It can be seen that not only is he good at handling political affairs, his skill in flattery is also not bad. Although from the beginning, he intended to keep Yuan Ruizhong. No matter what, the other party had to rush to beg for it, and not him revealing his trump card and letting Yuan Ruizhong take the initiative. Moreover, in the current Yuan family, the bad reputation brought by Yuan Fangfei, it was not impossible to wash it clean. In the previous life, everything was exposed. Li Hongyuan now saved his old face, and also saved the lives of the entire family. Look, he was so benevolent. Your Highness praises me too much, Yuan Ruizhong said without changing his expression. Therefore, as a qualified scholar official, what he cared about the most would always be the family. When everything else did not go against this principle, he could pamper, love and hold it. But once it went against this principle, everything else could be abandoned. Dignity, reputation, life. Everything else could also turn a soft bone into a hard bone. Yuan Ruizhong's current state was also within Li Hongyuan's expectations. Because of Yuan Fangfei, because of Madame Wei, the blows to him were small. As long as he did not die, the probability of him standing up in the end was more than 90%. Keeping you can indeed save a lot of trouble. Li Hongyuan was not afraid of trouble, but if he could save it, he would save it. Because that would consume more of his energy, he was more willing to use this energy on Yuan. The joy in Yuan Ruizhong's eyes disappeared in a flash. Many thanks, Your Highness. Dare I ask, Your Highness, how should we deal with Madame Wei? This question was purely a matter of business, and did not contain any personal feelings. But one could tell from the way he addressed Yuan Ruizhong. Keep her. She knows your body the best. Let her continue to nurse your body. You have to live a few more years, so that this prince will not lose money in this deal. If she dies, the people behind her will be alarmed. It is difficult to guarantee that they will not send someone else. Instead of sending someone else, it is better to hold the ready-made one in our hands, and let her pass on some things that this prince wants her to pass on. Your Highness is right. Yuan Ruizhong nodded. It seemed that he did not feel uncomfortable keeping such a woman by his side. Another characteristic of scholar officials was that they could bend and stretch to achieve their goals. Under Li Hongyuan's signal, Anjiu came in, pinched Madame Wei's chin, and quickly stuffed a pill into her mouth. Even if he kept her, he had to minimize her threat. From now on, not to mention martial arts, she would become a slender and weak ordinary woman of the inner residence who would pant after walking a few steps. Every day that Yuan Ruizhong dies is a day that you can live. For the sake of her family's life, Madame Wei would do her best to nurse Yuan Ruizhong's body. Take these letters and read them carefully. With Yuan Daren's intelligence, it should not be difficult to find out who is behind her. Yuan Ruizhong, this woman is with you. If anything happens, don't blame this prince for settling old and new debts. Your Highness, please rest assured. It was said that one would learn from one's mistakes. Yuan Ruizhong had suffered such a big loss. If he still could not control Madame Wei, who had lost her wings, he would have lived for decades in vain. After returning to the capital, this prince will arrange a few people for you. That is the most appropriate. Yuan Ruizhong nodded in agreement without saying anything else. This night had also wasted a lot of time. Li Hongyuan prepared to leave. This subject has one more thing to ask your highness. This subject asks your highness to stay for a while longer. Speak. In recent days, this subject seems to have offended Luo Daran in some way. But this subject is completely unaware. This subject is the head of the cabinet, and Luo Daran is the head of the 6 ministries. If this subject and Luo Daran do not see eye to eye for a long time, I'm afraid that there will be more incidents, therefore. Li Hongyuan raised his hand to interrupt him. On the day of the Dragon Boat Festival, Wan Fengfei secretly drugged Ben Wang's fiancée, causing her to have a slippery pulse for a short period of time. Say, where did your enmity come from? Wan Ruizhong immediately understood the inner workings of the situation. Don't say that Luo Peishan was only verbally provoking him. If it was someone else, they would have rolled up their sleeves and beaten him up. It's this subject's fault. This subject will definitely find an opportunity to apologize to him. As Wan Ruizhong spoke, he discovered that Jin Qinwang, who had always been indifferent, actually had a malicious look in his eyes, which coincided with the him in the rumors. He was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. That powerless Jin Qinwang, even if he was malicious and ruthless, wouldn't let these old officials care about him. Now that he thought about it, it was really the ignorant who had no fear. He was also glad that Jin Qinwang didn't really want to take someone's life at the slightest disagreement. Otherwise, who knows how many people would die in court without knowing why. Jin Qinwang had that ability. Hearing that Jin Qinwang cared about his current fiancée, he couldn't be blamed for tidying up that vile spawn. He wasn't just deceived by Weisher. That vile spawn pretended to be filial and well-behaved in front of him. Wasn't that also deceiving him? Let's not talk about the matter of her shamelessly recommending herself to the pillow. Let's not talk about her repeatedly scheming against Ben Wang's previous fiancés. As for drugging and sending her to a man's bed, that's a small matter. How many people she killed in your Wan family's backyard, and how she had intimate relations with her cousin in private, it has nothing to do with Ben Wang. Touching Ben Wang's current fiancé, she deserves to die 10,000 deaths. But to let her die like this is rather letting her off too easily. Tomorrow, send her to Zhong Qinwang's hands. In any case, she's not your seed. In the future, just treat it as if this person had never appeared in the Wan family. Although he already loathed Wan Fengfei to the extreme, but hearing her conduct and deeds, such a poisonous heart, just like her mother, he still felt like a mouthful of old blood was stuck in his throat. It was unbearable. His illustrious reputation was in vain. How could he be so blind when it came to this pair of mother and daughter? Such a person. It was no wonder that Jin Qinwang was so disgusted. I will follow Wang Ye's instructions. Li Hongyuan was unhappy, so naturally, he would make others unhappy as well. He had always understood the essence of it. Now that Wan Ruizhong happened to bump into the muzzle of the gun, he could only be unlucky. After sending off Li Hongyuan, when Wan Ruizhong faced Weisher again, he retreated with modesty. With a cold and stern face, he condescendingly looked at Weisher, who had become even weaker after taking in Jiu's medicine. It was this woman who made him wear a green hat, seduced his son, and almost harmed the lives of his entire clan. He really hated that he couldn't dismember her body into 10,000 pieces, but Jin Qinwang said that he wanted to keep her. He also felt that killing her wouldn't resolve his hatred. He boasted of being a gentleman and wouldn't be rough with women, but his face had long been trampled into the mud by this woman. Thus, why should he be polite to her? Didn't they say that he was old and couldn't satisfy her? In the future, he would find a way to satisfy her. Naturally, he wouldn't joke around with his own body. However, it would be too easy to find something to replace it. Before Weisher was injured, before she took that medicine, she didn't fear Wan Ruizhong at all. But now, she knew that she was in a weak position. There was no possibility of resistance. When there was nothing to rely on, she naturally couldn't stop the fear in her heart. She shrunk her body. Laoi. When he saw her take out her previous gentle and caring appearance, there would be no more tenderness in his heart, only disgust and disgust. He crouched down and grabbed Weisher's hair. Don't worry, let's take it slow. Weisher was terrified. She had never seen this kind of Ruan Ruizhong. She couldn't help but think of the person who had trained her. That was a memory that she never wanted to recall. Even after more than 20 years, when she thought of it, she would still tremble. Madame Wei probably didn't know that she was gradually creating an old pervert who was becoming more and more humble on the outside and more tactful when dealing with matters. Of course, it was an honor that she was the only one who could see his inner side. Ruan Ruizhong wanted to pull her away, but Weisher had only become weaker, not thinner. His current body wasn't very good, so he really didn't have the strength to pull her away. Get lost. He kicked her with his foot. As a prisoner, Weisher was very sensible and moved to the side. Ruan Ruizhong picked up the letters on the ground one by one. His movements were quite solemn. He made sure that he found every letter. He was even worried that Weisher had secretly hidden them when they weren't paying attention, and even took off her clothes. Probably because his mentality was different, Ruan Ruizhong was especially serious when he looked at these letters. He couldn't help but think. There were some things that he didn't even know about. Then he found a few unusual contents. They should have been sent to her by the person behind Weisher. With these he really found some clues. With this kind of method, they intended to take over Qi Yuan's empire. Did they think that there was no one in Qi Yuan? However, Ruan Ruizhong was also clear that it was impossible to send only one spy. Since Jin Qinhuang could find Weisher, then those who had the slightest connection with Weisher wouldn't be able to escape from his hands. The others might be another Weisher. Qi Yuan had been peaceful in recent years, so Ruan Ruizhong wasn't too worried. This night, half of it had passed. After that it was peaceful. The next day, Ruan de Foreign was summoned by her father-in-law. It was said that the old Foreign was sick, and asked her to send 2 people to take care of her. The main courtyard couldn't be left unattended, so she also made arrangements. Ruan de Foreign was a little shocked at first. Could it be that her father-in-law was really coaxed by that slut? But she didn't dare to say more. She twisted her handkerchief and respectfully responded. Then she personally led people to the main courtyard. The originally locked door was already opened. But when Ruan de Foreign saw the dying Weisher on the bed, she was finally relieved. It didn't look like she had coaxed the man back. But why did she still have to be served with good food and drink? But before she could make arrangements here, Ruan Ruizhong came to find her again. But it wasn't in the front courtyard, but at Ruan Fangfei's place. Her heart thumped again. She hadn't had time to tell her father-in-law that she had searched Ruan Fangfei's courtyard. If he saw Ruan Fangfei's miserable appearance, perhaps his heart would soften when she cried. In that case, the ones who would suffer would be them. She hurried over. Ruan Fangfei didn't have anyone to clean her up. She still looked the same as yesterday. And since then, she didn't eat anything. Her entire person looked miserable, sobbing softly. Unfortunately, the scar on her face was too ugly and couldn't be covered. Even if she cried like a pear blossom in the rain, there was no beauty. Ruan Fangfei cried while secretly glancing at Ruan Ruizhong. In the end, she saw that he was indifferent. His face was full of indifference. Her heart was completely cold. Who could tell her what was going on? Why did this old thing turn hostile so thoroughly? Madame Ruan let out a sigh of relief. Father, what orders do you have? Ruan Ruizhong glanced at her. He knew who did this in this courtyard. Don't do it again. Eldest daughter-in-law. Remember, there are some things that I don't like people to make decisions on their own. Daughter-in-law will remember. Madame Ruan hurriedly replied. But she should have passed this hurdle. She originally thought that her father-in-law was very kind, but now she felt that he was a bit frightening. Was it because he was hurt too badly? Help her wash up and change her clothes. Then send her to Prince Zhong's courtyard. In the future, she will live as Prince Zhong's person and die as Prince Zhong's soul. She will have nothing to do with the Ruan family. After speaking, he didn't even look at Ruan Fangfei and left. Ruan Fangfei forgot to cry. She widened her eyes in disbelief. When she came back to her senses, she immediately chased after him. Father, father. Madame Ruan immediately had people catch her. Her father-in-law even said such words. It could be seen that this lowly child was completely finished. Why aren't you bringing the girl back to wash up? What a scandal to be shouting like this. Father, father, don't go. Why are you doing this to me? I'm your daughter. Didn't you say that I'm the apple of your eye? How can you be so heartless in the blink of an eye? Madame Juan sneered. Daughter, apple of his eye. These words, if her father-in-law heard it now, he would feel that it was incomparably thorny. Shut her mouth for me. Then, Juan Fangfei could only make muffled sounds. Madame Juan patted her face. Save it. When you reach Prince Zhong's place, you still need a lot of strength to deal with him. Juan Fangfei's gaze was as if she wanted to eat her alive. Madame Juan didn't feel any pain or itch. She moved closer to her. Do you want to know why your father-in-law did this? Let me tell you. It's because you're not your father-in-law's child. I don't know which man your wall-climbing mother is pregnant with. She's also a bastard child. Juan Fangfei's pupil shrank, but she quickly calmed down and stopped struggling. Madame Juan smiled sarcastically. You believe it? It seems that you know very well what kind of person your mother is. After all, she was going to give her to Prince Zhong. The clothes given to her were not bad, but it was the last piece of clothing, and the last few pieces of jewelry used on her. Madame Juan wouldn't be reluctant to part with this. It should be known that the dowry originally prepared for her was not much less than that of the only legitimate daughter of Duke Ding. Now it was all saved. Perhaps because she knew that she no longer had a foothold in this family, Juan Fangfei was quiet. But before getting on the carriage, Juan Fangfei suddenly turned back and looked at Madame Juan with malice. I'm not that old dog's biological child. Maybe I'm your daughter in name. Madame Juan was so angry that her whole body trembled. This damned B*****. Juan Fangfei laughed very happily. You tell that old thing that things won't end like this. The matter of him being a cuckold and his son having an affair with his wife, I will definitely let the world know. Why haven't you blocked her mouth for me? Even so, Madame Juan still felt that she couldn't send her away like this. So she ordered people to watch Juan Fangfei. She hurriedly went to see Juan Ruizhong. Of course, she didn't dare to say the original words. She just tactfully mentioned it. According to her, he would become mute, unable to speak, unable to write, and unable to speak. No need. The more she did, the more she wanted to cover it up. Since Prince Jean wanted to send her to Prince Zhong, that side should have been taken care of. Prince Jean wanted to use him. Naturally, he wouldn't allow anyone to completely ruin his reputation. Also, if someone really wanted to know something, even if they couldn't speak or write, there were so many people in the world who could read lips. Since he said so, Madame Juan felt that it was inappropriate and could only do as he said. Juan Ruizhong was also not in a hurry to go to Lu Qingdi's place. The matter of the flood in the south, without him, it would be fine. Thus, it was better to take advantage of this time to take care of his body. The body was his capital. He couldn't wait until he returned to the capital for Lu Qingdi to really fire him. Although Li Hongyuan had a fatal handle on him, Juan Ruizhong's heart was at ease. At least, he was very clear about what he wanted to do. He didn't need to worry and be distracted by messy things. But there was one more thing. His sons were all brought to the front. He didn't care about his old face now, and directly made it clear to them. No matter if they had an affair with that cheap woman or not, they had to cut off all thoughts. This time he could not pursue it. In the future, they would honestly work and live their lives. They were not allowed to take another concubine. If they violated this, they would first be punished according to the family law, and then be directly removed from the clan. No matter who it was, they would not be tolerated. Scram! No matter how old they were, no matter what position they sat in the face of the thunderous rage of their father, they were like quails shrinking their heads. Then they dejectedly scram. Standing outside the door, they looked at each other, and without saying a word, they went their separate ways. Thus, while Juan Ruizhong was peacefully recuperating, Lu Qingdi and the others were busy. Following the reports that were sent one after another, it could be seen that the flood this time was not far from the truth. Moreover, it might be more serious than expected. However, because his heart was still somewhat confident, Lu Qingdi was not in a hurry and methodically issued decrees to the local government. According to Lu Qingdi's words, Luo Peishan had made great contributions this time. In addition to Li Hongyuan's secret help, Luo Peishan had basically understood all the officials in the Qi Yuan, not only through the files of the Ministry of Personnel, but also through the secret files that Jin Qinhuang had someone give him. The local officials who could be put in important positions were not 100% accurate, but there was at least 70% to 80% accurate. As long as these people were in position, there would basically be no major mistakes. What made people happy was that there were quite a few of these people in their respective positions. Lu Qingdi felt that he was wise, and when Rui Qinhuang, Gong Qinhuang, and the others found out that there were some of their people, they were secretly happy. Even Ding Guogong wrote a letter to be sent back to the capital to be presented to the Empress. He wanted to see if she could make another move in the capital. Who would have thought that those people were only arranged by Li Hongyuan 1 or 2 years ago? Or even 3 or 4 years ago? Methodically dealing with these matters, the people who went to the western border also sent back news that the matter was basically investigated. The countermeasures discussed by all parties had basically come to a conclusion. And this year, the 3 people who passed the Jinshi examination, as well as Sun Bingbai, all performed very well. They were all talents with potential. Jiao Wangya humbly bowed in person. These were the blessings of the Qi Yuan. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/66532239. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bikago mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 207. How beautiful and festive would it be after it was lit up? The younger children of the Luo family were playing in the courtyard with lanterns in their hands. At this time, no one would talk to them about etiquette. In fact, the children of the Luo family were not so strict. As for the other masters of the Luo family, they were scattered all over the courtyard, leisurely eating snacks and chatting. It was rare for the whole family to be so free. Jingwan leaned her body slightly and rested her elbows on the table to support her cheeks. Her expression was calm and relaxed as her eyes swept over the lanterns in the hands of her younger siblings. Not to mention those extremely beautiful paper bamboo lanterns, there were also very simple grapefruit lanterns, pumpkin lanterns, watermelon lanterns, orange lanterns, apple lanterns, and so on. The grapefruit lanterns were made by hollowing out the grapefruit and removing the inner white layer, leaving only a thin layer. Various vivid and exquisite patterns were carved on the grapefruit and tied with a string and lit with candles. The other lanterns were basically done in the same way. Most of these lanterns were made by ordinary families who did not have the money to buy lanterns for their children. It was unknown when it had become popular among the wealthy families. But the craftsmanship was more exquisite. It was just that the heart was removed, and the carvings on the outer shell were still the most common. There were those who were skillful enough to make lanterns that were comparable to lanterns. However, the Luo family's lanterns did not change their original appearance this time. They simply worked on the outer layer. Jingwan had taken a closer look at the lanterns and was impressed by the craftsmen. If it was in her previous life, these craftsmen would be considered master craftsmen. However, in the current world, craftsmen of this level were too common. Every household had their own craftsman. Jingwan saw an oversized wax-gourd lantern. It had the most common cylindrical shape, but the head was a little too big. It was more than a meter long and thick. An adult probably wouldn't be able to carry it. Jingwan was a little surprised. Even in her previous life, it was rare to see such a big winter melon, right? Even though the lantern was placed horizontally, the shape of the winter melon did not change at all. It was enough to show that the flesh of the melon was still quite thick. A 10-year-old boy was still struggling to carry it. It attracted not only Jingwan's attention, but the other children also gathered around. Even the adults would say a few words to the wax-gourd lamp. Children were very curious about strange things. With this curiosity, they naturally wanted to take it for themselves. The older ones would probably look at it eagerly, But the younger ones did not know how to restrain themselves and directly reached out to snatch it. As a result, it was no surprise that a battle for the winter melon lantern broke out. A group of little kids started to fight, but the older ones knew their limits. In addition, there were servants watching from the side. When they really got angry, they would pull them apart at the first moment. Then the others would happily watch the show. Jingwan was speechless for a moment. She saw that their respective parents were all in high spirits. Speaking of which, when she was in Qian Prefecture, such a situation had never occurred. Could it be that this was a more popular way of loving each other? The end result was the death of the winter melon lantern. After it became a lantern, before it was lit, there was a deafening cry. The juice from the spoiled winter melon made the little kids dirty. In the process of fighting, their hair was messed up and their clothes were scattered. It was a miserable sight. As if they had seen enough, the head of the household, Luo Peishan, waved his hand. Okay. All the children in each branch took them back to wash up and change clothes. Don't think that just because you seem to be calm from the beginning to the end, no one noticed your evil nature. You old bastard. After the initial shock, Sun Yijia could not help but cover her mouth and laugh. She looked very relaxed and happy. This kind of thing would never happen in Duke Dinggua's prefecture. If it was really a fight between children, the adults behind them could make a scene. The most disgusting thing was not necessarily out of sincere protection of their children. The children's injuries and cries were all bargaining chips. They might even deliberately magnify the bargaining chips. When the little kids returned one by one, they were clean and had innocent smiles on their faces again. The servants had already brought all kinds of food and wine to them one after another. Night began to fall, and the lanterns in the courtyard were lit one by one. From all directions, the lanterns lit up one by one. Jingwan felt that the feeling was a little strange. And after all the lanterns were lit up, it was as she had expected, unusually beautiful. Looking at the sky again, although it was not completely dark yet, the full moon was already hanging in the sky, and the stars were scattered in the sky. There were no dark clouds in the sky, and one could imagine that tonight would be a very good night to admire the full moon. When the sky was completely dark, a large incense table was set up in the courtyard. On the table were fruits, snacks, and other offerings. Among them, mooncakes and watermelons were absolutely indispensable. The watermelons had to be cut into the shape of a lotus. The mooncakes on the incense burner table were bestowed by Emperor Liqingdi. Of course, there was also a specially made reunion mooncake, which was quite big. Under the moonlight, the statue of the moon god was placed in the direction of the moon. The red candles were lit high. With Madame Luo taking the lead, the women of the family took turns to worship. That's right, only the women participated. The men from old to young obediently watched from the side. As the saying went, men don't worship the moon, women don't worship the kitchen stove. The moon belonged to the moon. The moon god, Chang Yi, was a woman, so only the women could worship the moon. If a man kowtowed humbly, it was a sign that he had bad intentions. Correspondingly, according to the folklore, the kitchen god was the incarnation of a mythical figure like Emperor Yan or Zhurong. In the dynasty, men and women should not touch each other. Therefore, it was against etiquette for women to worship him. What the hell was this? Jingwan could only laugh at this in her heart. After worshipping the moon, Madame Luo cut open the reunion mooncakes. The number of people in Luo Peishan's family, including the eldest grandson of the first branch, had to be cut. Speaking of which, Luo Peishan's family was all in the capital. If it was in the past, with Madame Wang as the chief knife, she would also have to include those in Qian Prefecture. Since Jingwan and the others were in Qian Prefecture, they would have to include those in the capital. However, every time this happened, Luo Peishan would always mention something about his second brother, the Luo second master, who had been a great scholar for 20 years and had students all over the world. Cutting mooncakes was a technical job. Every piece had to be the same size. However, this did not seem to be a difficult task for Madame Luo. Although the speed was a bit slow, the final result was gratifying. Everyone present took a piece, and the rest were placed on the incense table. The family ate happily, But there were also those who felt sour in their hearts. For example, the concubines of each branch were allowed to come out and gather together today. However, whether it was worshipping or mooncakes, they did not have a share. Then, there was another person who felt awkward. That was the Gu family. It seemed reasonable that Madame Luo did not prepare a share for them. However, the treatment that they received was the same as the concubines of the Luo family, wasn't it? After finishing the small piece of mooncake, everyone sat down and began to eat dinner. Of course, this was not a simple evening. Games, moon appreciation, dinner, these three were one. Of course, the games were more artistic, such as riddles, couplets, and connecting dragons. There was no reward for correct answers. If they did not connect, they would have to drink as punishment. Osmanthus wine. On the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival, looking up at the moon and smelling the scent of osmanthus, drinking a cup of osmanthus wine, celebrating the sweetness of the family, was no less than a great enjoyment. This year's osmanthus wine seems to be a bit different. Why does it feel better than the previous years? Luo Shangshu carefully recalled the taste. Father may not know, but this wine was sent by Jin Qinhuang a few years ago. Luo Rongwen said. It must be said that this Mid-Autumn Festival gift was something that all relatives and friends had to prepare. It was just that Jin Qinhuang's generosity was a bit big. Just what he sent was probably equal to the sum of everyone else's. Because Wang Shi was in charge of the family, the gift list was directly sent to Wang Shi's hands. It just so happened that he saw it. It was very difficult to maintain his composure. With such a generous gift, how could he return the gift? Madame Luo did not care much and followed the rules. In this way, the Luo family had profited greatly. So it's like this. Luo Peishan nodded. Sure enough, everything in Jin Qinhuang's hands is good. Everyone else nodded in agreement. Wasn't that so? This marriage with Jin Qinhuang was not entirely a bad thing. As before, in Jin Qinhuang's heart, he really cared about their family's myths as much as he showed. That was the best. The children did not eat much before they left the table, and began to play with the lanterns in the pond. Compared to the flower lanterns, the fruit lanterns were naturally more playable. In this way, almost an hour passed. The elders continued, and the younger generation prepared to go out to play. This would definitely not be possible on normal days. But today there was no curfew, so they could play all night. The little bean children impatiently watched their older brothers and sisters go out. Even if Madame Luo relaxed the conditions to go out this year, it was still stuck at the age of 10. The happiest were probably the 4 branches D twins. This year they entered the capital, just in time. Standing outside the gate, they could see that in front of each household, there were already lanterns everywhere on the walls. Although they could not see further, the lanterns seemed to illuminate the night sky, no less than a glazed world. Playing with lanterns during the Mid-Autumn Festival did not have a large lantern festival like the Lantern Festival, but it also had its own uniqueness. Almost all the households were going out at this time, moving forward neither fast nor slow. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653281. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, no registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com Com Mobile Edition Reading Website, mbicken.com. Chapter 208. Perhaps because he was caught off guard, Chen Jingmin seemed to be somewhat at a loss. But no matter how hard he tried, it was difficult for him to shift his gaze away from her. He originally thought that time would be able to completely erase the lovesickness that should not continue to exist. But after seeing the person, he suddenly discovered that, let alone erasing it, it was clearly deeply rooted, even forming a towering tree. This sudden eruption actually had a somewhat uncontrollable momentum. He foolishly stared, unconsciously approaching step by step, as if he wanted to get closer, his breath carrying the scent of her body. Jingwan naturally discovered that there was something wrong with him at the first moment, and quietly retreated. Not to mention that she was now a prospective Wangfei. Even if she was not engaged, she should also keep a distance from outside men. As for the outside man Jin Qinwang, that was a master who did not play his cards according to common sense. His words and deeds were never controlled by others. Jingwan sometimes spurned herself in her heart, but she also had to admit that in the passive intimate contact, she still gradually got used to Jin Qinwang's way. As long as it was not in public, she would go along with him. Therefore, she was also someone who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Of course, if it were not for the heavy status of being an engaged couple, Jingwan would probably fight to the death, and would absolutely not let a certain living king of hell touch her. In the end, she was not truly born and raised here. The bottom line that should be guarded would be guarded. Sometimes, she was more open than the average girl. Cousin Min. Jingwan smiled and crouched down to greet him. Chen Jingmin seemed to have been suddenly awakened. His whole body quivered, somewhat stiffly standing a few steps away from Jingwan. Looking at Jingwan, he restrained the impulse in his heart and somewhat reluctantly pulled the corner of his mouth. Cousin May. How have you been recently? Many thanks, cousin, I'm very good. But cousin, this time when you went out to run errands, you've been exposed to the wind and the sun. You've become a lot darker, but you also look more robust. According to Jingwan's estimation, he probably also grew taller. At his age, many people were still rapidly growing, so it was not surprising. It was the time when a teenager was turning into a young man. Chen Jingmin only felt that his throat was extremely dry. Calculating the time, before he left the capital, it had already been a long time since he last saw her. In addition, in the past 2 months, she had actually grown taller, and her figure was even more graceful. It actually felt as if a lifetime had passed. However, when he thought of the joy of being engaged to her, it was as clear as if it had been yesterday. Cousin is getting more and more. Little sister Wan. Sister-in-law. Jingwan looked in the direction of the voice, then quickly walked over and naturally held her arm. Greetings, cousin-in-law. Chen Jingmin hurriedly saluted, and the gaze that fell on Jingwan's body also withdrew, showing the demeanor of a gentleman. Sunny Jia turned sideways slightly, and accepted half of the greeting before returning the greeting. Nice to meet you, uncle. Sunny Jia sized up Chen Jingmin without batting an eyelid. Just now, she suddenly saw that this person who came in third was like her fifth brother, deeply in love with little sister Wan. She was worried that he would say something inappropriate, so she somewhat impolitely interrupted him. Uncle, you have had a hard journey. This time, are you here to greet grandmother? Grandfather is not at home right now. The current situation was really awkward for Chen Jingmin. Of course I am here to greet grandaunt. Sunny Jia nodded. Today my husband did not go out. When he knows that you are back, he will be very happy. I also haven't seen my cousin for a long time. Today I can't miss a few cups of wine. I hope cousin-in-law won't blame me when the time comes. After all, he had experienced some worldly affairs, so he quickly became calm and composed. As he spoke, there was a hint of joking. What are you talking about? You are cousins, so it is a great blessing that you have such a deep relationship. After chatting for a while, Chen Jingmin left to greet Madame Luo. After Chen Jingmin left, Sunny Jia looked at Jingwan rather mockingly. She could not tell that little sister Wan had the potential to be a femme fatale. These two outstanding men had really fallen into her hands. Jingwan was a little uncomfortable under her gaze. What are you looking at? What is there to see? Are you angry from embarrassment? When she and Jingbo first got married, she was teased a lot by her. It would be a waste if she did not use such a good opportunity to take revenge. Of course, she also knew that Jingwan would not really be angry, so she was like this. However, in terms of shamelessness, she was definitely not Jingwan's opponent. In an instant, Jingwan smiled and put her hands on her waist. I can't help it. I am a girl who is loved by others. Flowers bloom when they see me. Sunny Jia was defeated. If you have the ability to say these words in front of, she pouted in the direction of the main courtyard. In front of people. I don't have the ability, Jingwan admitted shamelessly. Sunny Jia was extremely speechless. Forget it. She had never won when it came to arguing with her. However, This kind of joke did not go too far. A true love, no matter the result, should not be joked about. However, Sun Yijia probably did not know that someone would take revenge for her at night. What no longer belonged to him would no longer belong to him in the end. No matter who it was, he should let go of this feeling. If he could not let go, then he should bury it deeply. Chen Jungmin wiped his face, raised a faint smile, and entered the main courtyard. After that, Jingwan did not see him in the Luo residence. It was said that after arriving at the temporary imperial residence, he came to the Luo residence after a little reorganization. After that, he only spoke a few words with Luo Jingbua before someone hurriedly came to invite him, saying that the emperor wanted to see him. The Chen family had declined in these years, but the temporary residence was still there. Although part of it was sold due to regulations, it was not as big as it was in the beginning. As a descendant of the Chen family, it was still possible for Chen Jingmin to come here and live for a while. Even if his family did not have a residence, after being summoned by the emperor, he would not be without a residence. The periphery of the temporary imperial residence was actually built into a post house. It could be seen that all aspects were considered. Lu Qingdi summoned the main members of the westbound party, including his 2 sons, 4 young talents, and several ministers who accompanied them. For this task, the 9th Wangya had the title of an imperial envoy, so naturally, he was the leader of everything. Although in the whole matter, he only had a pair of ears most of the time. But most of the time, this was enough. As Li Hongyuan expected, after he took down the chief culprit of the riot, the original 2 imperial envoys became one. Although the 10th Wangya was still with him, he did not have the right to speak. Naturally, he could not argue with his elder brother. As long as the 2 brothers did not make any mistakes, coupled with the reasonable deployment of personnel by Luo Shangshu, it was basically a sure thing to solve the problem properly this time. The 9th Wangya was highly praised by Lu Qingdi. For a moment, he was in high spirits and was very proud. Although the 10th Wangya was jealous, he did not show it on his face. Along the way, he had gotten used to the 9th royal brother's face. Because he had been told many times before he left, he had to endure it again and again. After enduring it for a long time, he did not seem to take it seriously. Moreover, he thought that he had learned something along the way. When Lu Qingdi praised others, he could also smile. At least, there was no dissatisfaction on his face. Although the memorial was sent back first, the specific situation still needed to be known from the mouths of the people. After Lu Qingdi praised his son, he carefully listened to the reports one by one. It was very tacit. No matter which faction they originally belonged to, at this time, they did not fight for credit. At this time, they only scrupulously followed their duty. At this time, they only knew that they were involved in the part. Lu Qingdi was satisfied. Stroking his beard, his eyes finally fell on the 10th Wangya. 10th Wangya, don't you have anything to say? The 10th Wangya was a little embarrassed. He glanced at his backer, Prince Rui. I'm a good for nothing. I can't help with anything. At that time, the 3rd imperial brother also said that I should go with him to learn something. In the spirit of listening and watching, I saw and heard a lot. The 10th Wangya said some things selectively. However, the words he said were very skillful, making people feel that he really learned a lot. Lu Qingdi was happy in his heart. He was not stingy with his praise for this son. To the officials, he needed something practical. However, his son was different. He probably liked his praise more. The 10th Wangya was overjoyed. The joy between his eyebrows became more real. Prince Rui and the others laughed together, but their smiles didn't reach their eyes. This was originally a dog that relied on him to survive. Now that he had a family and did something wrong, he seemed to have thoughts that he shouldn't have. However, since he could let him live well for so many years, he naturally could let him know what would happen to him if he wasn't around. The matter of the reward had to wait until they returned to the capital. After all, the flood in the south had not been dealt with properly. Chen Jingmin did not see Luo Peishan in the Luo family. After leaving Lu Qingdi's place, Chen Jingmin said a few words to him. Dozens of feet away, Sun Yilin stood for a while. In the end, he did not go forward and turned to leave. Perhaps it was because he had always been tolerant of his elder brother. Compared to Chen Zhengmin, although he was more outstanding than many people of his age, and his family was not as good as the Ding general manner, it was undeniable that he was brought up by his family. His mind was much simpler. Even though he had experienced changes and was growing up rapidly, Sun Yilin was still more restrained and had a stable and mature temperament. When he arrived, he might have the same thoughts as Chen Zhengmin. Moreover, Sun Yijia was in the Luo family. His excuse to visit was completely in line with the rules. He was destined not to go to the Luo family in a hurry. Before Lu Qingdi summoned Sun Yilin, he just freshened up. He saw a few brothers and cousins who had nothing to do. He found that their words and actions were a little strange. However, he could not tell the details. As for his grandmother and parents, he had not seen them yet. His grandmother was old, so he should go and kowtow to her. His father should be busy with business. As for his mother, under normal circumstances, she should have come out long ago. But he did not see her because she was sick. Thinking of his mother's attitude before he left, his head throbbed with pain. When he went back and saw her later, he did not know what kind of trouble she would cause. Sun Yilin had never been an unfilial person, but when facing his mother, he was probably more willing to face the hardships of the outside world. In the past 2 months, he might have suffered a lot physically. After all, before this mission, he was also a delicate young master. But to be able to do something for the country and the people, to be able to show his ambition bit by bit, his heart was the so-called relaxed. On the way back, he even had the idea of going south. However, as an official of the imperial court, he naturally could not casually interfere in other affairs without an imperial edict, so he could only give up on the idea. However, in the dead of night, he could not help but think of that figure. Sun Yilin first went to visit old Madame Sunday. Old Madame Sun was trimming the flowers at the moment. Her attitude was as usual. It was as if her grandson had never left. He only went out once during the day, and came back to greet her at night. Old Madame Sun put down the scissors, and looked at Sun Yilin carefully. You've lost weight and become darker. However, your spirit is not bad. A real man should go out more often. Sun Yilin smiled. Sure enough, his grandmother understood him best. Is my grandmother okay? She can eat and sleep. There's nothing bad about it. Your little sister is pregnant. Sun Yilin's face showed joy. My little sister is really lucky. I'll go and see her later. Old Madame Sun snorted coldly. Sun Yilin's eyebrows jumped and his face changed. Did something go wrong? She was almost tortured to death by your mother. Fortunately, she was saved. Otherwise, our family and the Luo family would have become enemies. Old Madame Sun briefly recounted what happened that day. Although it's not to the extent that we don't have any contact with each other, the relationship of marriage and kinship is dispensable. Sun Yilin's face was like a color palette. When he wasn't around, she went to torment his little sister. She didn't care about his little sister, and tried her best to smear the Luo family. What's in it for her to do this? She's clearly not in good health, but she's still. Old Madame Sun sneered. Who knows what's in your mother's mind? I've already grounded her completely. Sun Yilin wouldn't say anything too outrageous. However, it's good that she's grounded. After leaving old Madame Sun's place, Sun Yilin hesitated for a moment before going to see his mother. He wanted to see her, and with old Madame Sun's permission, no one dared to stop him. Sun Yilin entered the courtyard and saw that it was still in good order. After entering the house, the furnishings that should have been there were not missing. Although there were fewer servants, her mother had not been neglected. Mother! Duchess Ding smashed the cup in her hand and suddenly turned her head to look at Sun Yilin. Yilin, you're back. It's good that you're back. Other than that, Duchess Ding didn't do anything drastic. Contrary to what he expected, his mother didn't go crazy. However, Sun Yilin still didn't know what to say to her. Duchess Ding just asked him how he was doing along the way. It seemed that the graceful and dignified Duchess Ding had returned. However, when Sun Yilin said that he was going to see Sun Yijia, her body stiffened, and she didn't say a word. Even at this point, he still didn't even say a word of apology? I still have something to do. I'll come to see you later. Duchess Ding watched him leave and stretched out her hand, as if she wanted to persuade him to stay. But she didn't say anything in the end. The journey was long, so he naturally saw a lot of local customs along the way. He was in a hurry when he left, but he was relatively relaxed when he came back. Sun Yilin was the young master of the Duke's mansion, and he had never been short of money. He bought a lot of things, and many of them were for young women. Others made fun of him, and wondered if he had taken a fancy to a little girl. He only said that they were for his sister, and he was indeed a Sun Ijia. However, he didn't know if he had foresight, but he also bought a lot of children's toys. He thought that there would be a day when his nephew would come, so he came earlier than expected. He ordered people to pick up the things, and gave one to Sun Ijia, and the other to the Luo family. When Sun Ijia saw Chen Jingmin, she knew that her fifth brother would definitely come. So when she heard the servant's report, she thought that it was just as expected. Since there was no fate, seeing him would only increase her yearning. In this case, it was better not to see him. Therefore, Sun Ijia went to see her fifth brother, and asked Jingwan to practice the zither seriously, so that she could play it for her child in the future. Otherwise, her aunt's zither skills were so bad. In the future, who would have the nerve to say that her Luo Jingwan had once shocked everyone with her skills? Jingwan also roughly understood Sun Ijia's meaning, so she continued to practice the zither with grievance. Since she had the intention to stop them, naturally, such a thing as a chance encounter would not happen again. Sun Ijia went to the main courtyard. Not long after, the brother and sister came out together and sat in the garden. The brother and sister pair chatted casually, which made them feel quite relaxed and happy. Sun Yilin saw that her complexion was rosy, and she had gained some weight. Her belly was also gradually showing. She was truly living well in the Luo family. Sun Yilin didn't mention Jingwan, but Sun Ijia couldn't help but bring it up. Fifth brother, Wan Mimi is very well now. Jin Qinwang is also very good to her. Don't think about it anymore. Find a good girl and live peacefully. The pain in Sun Yilin's eyes flashed and disappeared. Then he laughed. Take care of yourself. Worry about your brother-in-law and child. I know my own matters. With him like this, Sun Ijia felt that her fist had landed on cotton. She was powerless. Seeing that it was about time, Sun Yilin said his goodbyes and left. But when he left the garden, he suddenly looked back. There was no need to ask. Sun Ijia knew what he was looking at. Not being able to see Wan Mimi, he should be regretful. However, he didn't regret doing that. If he wanted to break it off, it should be done cleanly. There wasn't a list of the things that were given to Sun Ijia. After returning, Sun Ijia looked through them one by one. Instead, Jingwan sat at the side and watched her fiddle with them. Among these things, there were expensive ones. Naturally, there were also things that were novel but relatively cheap. Sun Ijia didn't dislike them at all. She was even more partial to those little things. Those were elder brother's kind intentions. Of course, Sun Ijia also saw that there was something fishy about these things. Others didn't know, but she was very clear. It was clearly something that was specially prepared for Wan Mimi, but right now, she wanted to take all of it, and didn't want Wan Mimi to know. Fifth brother, don't blame a Mimi for not being honest. With the help of her sister-in-law, Jingwan almost didn't make her spend any effort to get rid of her first two fiancés. It was just that it wasn't easy to get rid of them. That was why he attacked her at night with a dark face. In the past, Li Hongyuan occasionally came at night. If Jingwan was asleep, even if he woke her up, he would do it gently. He wouldn't make any big movements because he was afraid that he would startle her. But tonight, it was different. When he entered the door, he was in a dark mood. He was full of hostility. He directly took off her clothes and pressed himself on her. Jingwan was immediately awakened. Before she could react, he kissed her lips tightly. Not only was he not gentle, but he was also fierce. Jingwan didn't know what was wrong with him. However, his indulgence of Jingwan wasn't in vain. At least now, Jingwan wouldn't be so polite in front of him. When she was kissed until she couldn't breathe, she directly scratched him. She wasn't polite at all, and directly left bloody marks. Li Hongyuan wouldn't really hurt her. When he let go, his face was still dark. Before Jingwan could say anything, he questioned her in a fierce voice. Did you see your two ex-fiancés today? Jingwan was stunned. The fire that Li Hongyuan made disappeared. Lying under him, she looked at him, as if she was looking at something strange. Why did his tone sound like he was catching her in the act? And it seemed like there was a hint of jealousy in his voice? Was this purely possessiveness, or was he really jealous? One is grandmother's grandnephew, and the other is sister-in-law's brother. It's normal for them to come and pay a visit. It has nothing to do with me. Seeing that she had seen something strange, Jingwan explained to him in a good tone. Many misunderstandings were caused by such unclear reasons. Moreover, women were originally a vulnerable group. If they were misunderstood by their fiancés, they would definitely suffer a big loss. Although this problem was not within Jingwan's consideration, Li Hongyuan's face didn't look much better. Without saying anything, he kissed Jingwan again. Jingwan didn't refuse him, and obediently let him kiss her. However, as they kissed, Li Hongyuan began to go crazy again. He held Jingwan's chin. In fact, he just held it, forcing Jingwan to look at him. He wouldn't really hurt Jingwan. I'm close to you. Why don't you resist? Jingwan was extremely speechless. Your Highness, do you want me to resist? However, this sentence not only didn't appease him, but also ignited a powder keg. The two of them, did you allow them to do this to you? His eyes really looked like he wanted to swallow Jingwan alive. Jingwan was also a little angry. Your Highness, you're twisting words and forcing logic. I have nothing to do with them. You have nothing to do with them now. Previously, don't forget, you were engaged to them. I'm your fiancé now. When they were your fiancés, was it the same? Li Hongyuan was purely overwhelmed by jealousy at this moment and spoke without thinking. Even Jingwan felt that she was going to die of anger. You're the only one in the world who doesn't abide by the rules. There are many men and women who only meet after marriage. If it weren't for you taking advantage of me first. Inexplicably, she felt a little wronged. It was all this bastard's good deed, but now he had the nerve to blame it on her. Did he despise her for not resisting? Fine. Jingwan's claws slashed at his body mercilessly. It didn't work, so she used her teeth to bite him. She was so angry that she didn't hold back at all. She bit his shoulder until it was dripping with blood. Jingwan's fierceness finally woke a certain someone up, but it still didn't make him shrink back. He held the back of her head and kissed her fiercely. His mouth was full of the taste of blood, but he didn't care at all. But Jingwan was not interested in cooperating now. She was really using all her strength to resist. How good it was to be docile, and even cater to his wan. After eating the bitter fruit, she also knew that she had smashed her own foot with a stone. He wanted to say something, but Jingwan didn't give him a chance. Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows and cooperated with her. He didn't use all his strength to suppress her, but he only used a little more strength than her. Under his deliberate intention, instead of saying that the two were competing, it was better to say that rolling around was a kind of fun. Jingwan's physical strength was far inferior to his. By the time she realized the clues, she had already lost her strength. Her body was limp and her head turned away, not wanting to look at this guy. Your Highness, you should leave quickly. I'm a shameless person who has intimate relations with men before marriage. I don't want to dirty your precious body. Saying such words, it was obvious that he was really angry. Good Samaritan. I was wrong. Don't be angry. I know you're not that kind of person. I forced you. It's just that when I think of their engagement with you, my heart feels like something is stuck in it. That's why I said those words. Don't be angry. Li Hongyuan had been thinking about her for too long. He knew that it was rude to get close to her before marriage, but he didn't let her lose her virginity before marriage. That was the limit. People who didn't have the same experience as him wouldn't be able to understand his desire for her. At the beginning, he only forcefully invaded her. When she didn't know anything, if she refused to resist, she was afraid that it would anger him and implicate the Luo family. So she compromised. He took advantage of this point and step by step, made her accustomed to it. He invaded her everything, not giving her a way out, not giving her room to maneuver. Jingwan was speechless. You're a dignified prince, where's your shame? Aren't you the living king of hell, cool and domineering? Who are you trying to show this pitiful and wronged look to? I didn't say a word about your ex-fiancés. Wan minds. Li Hongyuan's eyes even lit up. Jingwan wanted to cover her eyes. This big dog, Your Highness, wake up. Li Hongyuan really did look like a big dog. He drooped his head in disappointment and buried it in Jingwan's neck. As if he was mocking, he said, I knew Wan didn't mind at all. When I think of you getting engaged with others, getting married with others, and doing what we did with others, I want to kill someone. He wasn't just saying this out of anger. When he thought of those two who still couldn't forget Wan and Wan's husband in his previous life, he wanted to chop them all up. Jingwan sighed inexplicably. Your Highness, whether it's you or someone else, I'll get married sooner or later. Sooner or later I'll have a man. Li Hongyuan hugged her even tighter. I won't allow it. You can only be mine. Mine. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653248. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 209. Then please hold on to me tightly, so that I can be loyal to you one day. Jingwan said as she unconsciously reached out to stroke the hair on the back of Li Hongyuan's head. After saying this, she was actually a bit lost in thought. She didn't know why she said such a thing. In this world where men were superior to women, a married woman should regard her husband as the sky. It was natural for her to be loyal to her husband. It was intolerable for her to be disloyal. If people found out, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she would be condemned by thousands of people. She actually said such a thing, and the other party was a prince who stood at the peak of power and controlled life and death. Women, in their eyes, might not even be as good as a piece of clothing. Jingwan believed that although she didn't live carefully like walking on thin ice, she still paid attention to what she should pay attention to. Even if her words and actions were out of line, it was still within the scope of control. Moreover, the other party was trustworthy and guaranteed that it wouldn't be leaked. Did this also represent her trust in him? Trust, such a simple word. However, whether it was given to others or received from others, sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was very difficult. When it was easy, it might be in a flash, and when it was difficult, it might not be realized in a lifetime. Jingwan reached out to cover her eyes. Sure enough, she was no exception. She would also be hit by the sugar-coated bullets called indulgence, pampering, and warmth. Although it was impossible for her to completely trust him, she still had a bit of trust in him. Jingwan now faintly understood the madness and decisiveness shown when one was heartlessly abandoned and heartlessly betrayed. Since the monarch is heartless, I will give up. It was easy to say, but it was really easy to do. It probably only showed that one wasn't wholeheartedly devoted. Just like now, she was thinking, if in the future this man promised her the life she wanted and heartlessly destroyed it, she wouldn't be so magnanimous as to let go. But whether it was possible to kill him. Look, she was just a little touched by him now. She was no longer blindly restraining herself from being moved by him. But she could have such thoughts. What about those who were deeply in love? Or was she actually extreme and crazy in her bones? Naturally, he had to hold on to her tightly. Once she was in his hands, how could he give others a chance? After knowing her temperament and the ideal life she wanted, if this could make her favor another man, then he could just slit his own throat. Li Hongyuan looked up, held her hand that was covering her eyes, and moved it away. That flash of ruthlessness made him slightly startled. He lowered his head and gently bit her bloody lips. What are you thinking about? Jingwan probably knew that there was something wrong with the look in her eyes, but she didn't panic. She didn't try to explain or cover up what she had just said. Facing Li Hongyuan, she tilted her head and suddenly smiled like a flower. Murder? Oh. Li Hongyuan was not surprised, let alone frightened. He even asked with great interest, who? You. Jingwan opened her mouth slightly, but her words were clear. Li Hongyuan frowned slightly, looking a little distressed. Wan, let's make a deal? Did this man think she was joking? Haha. When you really want my life, just tell me. How about it? He probably knew under what circumstances she would want his life. Now that he was thinking about it, it was a good sign. Can I still kill you if I tell you? Isn't this a matter of taking the enemy by surprise and catching them off guard? I am your husband, and also a member of the imperial family. Killing a husband is a capital offense. Assassinating a member of the imperial family will implicate the entire Luo family. So, it's not worth it for you to do it yourself. Tell me, I will help you. I guarantee that the final result will satisfy you, and you won't be implicated at all. So whatever you do, you have to leave it to someone who's good at it. Jingwan looked at him in disbelief. Does Wang Ye really know what I'm talking about? What are you talking about? My ears are fine, my ability to understand is fine, and my mouth is fine. Wan, it's fine if you want my life, but there's a condition. Li Hongyuan pointed at her heart. It must completely belong to me. Only your heart can exchange for my life. Do you understand? He didn't seem to be joking at all. Jingwan's breathing stagnated. She suddenly felt a little scared. She twisted her body, as if to avoid the atmosphere that was like a cage. Her eyes wandered, not daring to meet his eyes. She forced a smile. If a person doesn't have a heart, they also don't have a life. A life for a life, I'm still losing out. Li Hongyuan chuckled and pinched Jingwan's chin, making her look at him. Wan, if you want to pretend to be confused, I won't force you. But you must remember what Li Hongyuan said today. Not to mention this life, even in the next life. As long as you remember it, it will be effective. A heart for a life. You fell in love with him, and he betrayed you, you can take his life. And it's a promise that's not just for one life. It was very heavy, but it also made people look forward to it. Of course, Jingwan wasn't afraid that she couldn't bear it. It's just that, when these words came out of Jin Qinhuang's mouth, it seemed very unreliable. However, his attitude didn't seem to be joking. Li Hongyuan wanted to strike while the iron was hot, and let her understand more things. But in the end, he was afraid that if he pushed too hard, she would shrink back instead. He was even more distressed by her frowning and tangled appearance. In any case, things weren't completely without progress. In fact, this progress had already exceeded his expectations. Her heart wasn't as hard to shake as he expected. But even so, he didn't feel that the road in the future would become easy. He unceremoniously bit her again. You're not allowed to see those two people in the future, understand? All her thoughts turned to nothingness in an instant. But Jingwan couldn't get angry at this time. She was only left with helplessness. Everything's fine. If there's nothing, why would I see them? Don't randomly eat vinegar and go crazy. Flying vinegar and whatnot, she didn't understand, but she could roughly guess. Even if there's something, you can't see them. Don't think that I don't know that those two people have wolfish ambitions for you. If there's really something, they wouldn't come up openly. Today, Chen Jingmin didn't wait for Fu Huang to summon him. He just changed his clothes and came over. It's really an ordinary visit. Why is there a need to be so anxious? What's his intention? It's simply short of announcing it to the world. Sun Yilin looks like a gentleman, but he's also not a good thing. Seeing Li Hongyuan's flustered and exasperated appearance that wanted to kill someone, Jingwan felt very amused. The one who had the least face to say that someone else wasn't a good thing was probably you, Jin Qinhuang. And this image of yours, the subversion is really too serious. It seems a bit childish. Let those people who have been dealt with miserably by you see it. Would they have the thought of being dealt with by such a person? They simply don't have the face to live? Thinking of this, Jingwan couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. Li Hongyuan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. The hostility in his eyes seemed to congeal into substance. He suddenly turned over and got out of bed. Pulling his clothes over, he started to put them on. This seemed like he was really angry. Jingwan reflected, was she a bit too excessive? She hurriedly sat up, not caring that her clothes and hair were in a mess. She reached out to pull him. What is Wang Ye doing? Li Hongyuan turned back to look at her, his eyes cold and murderous. Doing what? Killing them. Ben Wang really shouldn't have. shouldn't have facilitated their marriage with Wan. He should have directly asked his old man to sanction the marriage. Whether he agreed or not, he had to agree. At worst, he would overthrow his throne and cause his brothers to fight for the throne. So what if he started an internal and external war? What did the suffering of the people have to do with him? It would also save him from the pain in his heart, liver and lungs, wishing that he could grind those people's bones and scatter their ashes. Although it wasn't directed at her, Jingwan couldn't help but tremble. She hurriedly stood up to stop him. I was wrong just now. Don't treat people's lives as nothing. Yuan, don't casually kill people. Li Hongyuan's expression became even colder. Are you pleading for them? You even used a term that you only use in bed. Jingwan wanted to curse his mother. How could he twist her meaning like this? However, if she didn't appease him now, Jingwan was really afraid that someone would come to their house to report the deaths tomorrow morning. I didn't mean that. I just thought that if you inexplicably took their lives, no matter how much your imperial father dotes on you, he would definitely blame you. You also offended a lot of your brothers. At this time, they would definitely make things difficult for you. It's hard to say why you killed them. You can't tell the truth. When the time comes, I would be at the center of the storm. Yuan, you wouldn't have the heart to do that, right? It's just killing 1 or 2 people. Do you think I'll be caught? Binwang isn't trashed to that extent. Bastard, can't you speak properly? Of course, there's nothing you can't do. On the other hand, they're still considered young talents. It's not bad to leave them to work like cattle or horses for Qi Yuan. There are millions of people in Qi Yuan, and there are plenty of young talents. It doesn't make much difference whether they're added or not. He was determined to kill, wasn't he? Is he still a normal person who wants to kill someone just because of a disagreement? He's definitely sick, the kind that's seriously sick. It's so tiring to meet such a person. Yuan, I have nothing to do with them now. Don't be so narrow-minded, okay? I'm narrow-minded. Li Hongyuan's voice suddenly rose a few octaves. He looked at Jingwan gloomily and sneered. Wan, since you've said so, then I'll just make this title a reality. He didn't even care about his clothes and turned to leave. Jingwan subconsciously reached out and hugged his waist. She just wanted to slap her own mouth. But at least she knew that this person was really narrow-minded. She had to be more careful in the future. She couldn't say anything. I was wrong. How can you be narrow-minded? If that was the case, you would have killed them long ago. Yuan is the most magnanimous. I'm not magnanimous at all. You're right, I'm really narrow-minded. Jingwan wanted to cry. Who could give her some advice? She really didn't know what to do with this man. It was fine if she didn't coax him. But the more she coaxed him, the more it was like adding fuel to the fire. What the hell was this? Jingwan looked up, and he lowered his head to look at her. You're not going to say anything? If you're not going to say anything, then let go. Jingwan gritted her teeth and threw caution to the wind. She let go, quickly wrapped her arms around his neck, tiptoed and kissed him. A certain someone's eyes flashed, but he lowered his head slightly. It would be a waste to reject the benefits that came to him. But that was all. He didn't reach out his hand, didn't kiss back, and firmly told Jingwan his unshakable position. Jingwan rubbed her lips on his for a moment, and used the tip of her nose to rub his chin intimately. As the saying goes, if I don't kill Bo Run will die because of me. Is Yuan really willing to let me bear such a sin? She secretly glanced at him, and his expression seemed to loosen. She continued. Moreover, at this time, is it really okay for you to leave me to kill people? She gently rubbed against him. Yuan, I'm so tired of standing on tiptoe. So she had to quickly grow taller. It was not good to have a big height difference. At the same time, Jingwan heard a crashing sound. It was the sound of her moral integrity breaking. Li Hongyuan narrowed his eyes and reached out to hold her waist, pulling her close to him. He lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers. Wan's words are reasonable. As the saying goes, killing people is common, but the grace of a beauty is not common. How can we let down something that is not common because of something that is common? He carried Jingwan up and placed her on the bed. This way, you won't be tired. Then, he pressed his body against hers. With overwhelming enthusiasm, Li Hongyuan's mouth was no less merciful than when he first came in. It was probably because she pleaded for leniency, just now that he was in a bad mood, and wanted to make up for it. Jingwan wondered if she would really be eaten by him tonight. However, if it really came to that point, she might not refuse. Regardless of whether she would fall into his hands in the end, she probably wouldn't have any other man besides him. Jingwan was somewhat unable to endure his hands and mouth, but she suddenly heard him say, "Let them go for tonight, and tomorrow." Jingwan was slow to understand what he meant. Anger rose from her heart and she kicked him. "You still won't let them go? Actually, those two are your true love." Jin Qinhuang's reputation of eating both men and women is like thunder to the ear. If you really can't bear to let them go, then hurry and find them to be lovey-dovey. This miss wants to sleep, so I won't accompany you. Li Hongyuan also knew that if he continued to speak, she would probably turn hostile. He snorted, "Whether or not I eat both men and women, I will definitely let you experience it for yourself." And then on this night, Jingwan indeed experienced it for herself. Gong Mama, who had been kicked out of the room by Li Hongyuan at the beginning, was guarding the door with all her heart. Looking at the dark night sky, she was infinitely melancholy. Wang Yi was clearly taking advantage of the situation to cause trouble, and this miss had foolishly delivered herself to the door. Now that she had been completely eaten, she didn't know how she would be tormented by him in the future. However, Gong Mama also knew that according to this living king of hell's temperament, if she didn't stop him, he would most likely settle those two gongzi tonight. This attitude of wanting to be real and wanting to be fake, according to this Mrs. temperament, even if she knew what his purpose was, she would still appease him every time. This loss, she had to eat it, even if she didn't want to. Therefore, Jingwan still didn't know that she had stepped on the bitter road of sacrificing her body to protect the peace of the world. Once he was stubborn, she had to appease him. If she didn't appease him, or if she appeased him too slowly, he could do whatever he wanted to do. He would make the heavens angry and people resent him, but they couldn't do anything about him. They could only cry and complain in front of Jingwan. After so many times, Jingwan probably learned to be obedient. Once he showed signs, she would quickly think of a way to extinguish it. It couldn't be better if he didn't torment her to the bed. Even if she did, it was better than waiting for his anger to soar to the extreme. The next day when it was time, Jingwan didn't get up. However, her maidservants and mamas tacitly didn't wake her up. She had practiced for so long at night, so she didn't need to do it in the morning. A certain someone still left around the same time. He looked refreshed and didn't look like he was tired for half the night. Gong Mama was clearly angry, but she still had to help him freshen up. Fortunately, Sun Yijia didn't come to find her, so Jingwan could sleep until the sun was high up in the sky. In order to prevent irrelevant people from knowing, they just wiped her body after they stopped, and it was a certain prince who personally served her. When Jingwan got up, he fetched water to take a bath. Because it was long past the time for Jingwan to take a bath, he had to find an excuse to avoid arousing suspicion. The servants wouldn't talk about the master, but it was difficult to explain to others, especially Madame Luo. Thinking about it, it should be obvious that this routine was suddenly broken. Anyone would have to ask if something had happened. Jingwan's body was denser than any other time, especially on her chest, lower abdomen, lower waist, inner thighs, and other places. It was almost impossible to see the original color of her skin. The maidservants blushed, the wet nurse was helpless, and Gong Mama was even more angry. Even if he had never touched a woman, he didn't need to be so cruel. The girl was still young and delicate. Even if he was a beast, he should know how to take care of her. Time after time, Jingwan had become thick-skinned in this aspect. Even with this appearance, under the gaze of the maidservants, she could still act as usual. She leaned on the edge of the bathtub lazily, and was a little listless. There was no problem with her body. After all, she exercised regularly, and her body was very flexible. It was not that she did not exercise for a long time, and would feel sore after a little vigorous exercise. It was just that she did not get enough sleep. Gong Mama was like that. Every time a certain king of hell came, her face would darken. But other than being angry and competing with herself, it probably didn't have any other effect. Jingwan turned around in the water, resting her chin on her folded hands. She smiled faintly and said, "Mama, don't be like this. It doesn't hurt." "Miss, it's not Mama nagging you, but don't indulge Jin Qinwang. This kind of thing, too many times will harm the body. You are still young." She was full of resentment towards Li Hongyuan, and also a little resentful towards Jingwan. Jingwan shrunk her neck imperceptibly. It wasn't just the other party who was greedy for pleasure. She also had a little bit, just a little bit. Probably in order to cover up her little guilty conscience, Jingwan changed the topic. "Yesterday, Cousin Min came with young Master Sunday. He knew later. Mama, do you think he sent someone to keep an eye on our Luo family's gate?" This time, it was Gong Mama's turn to have a little guilty conscience. However, she didn't send a message to him about yesterday's matter. Originally, there was nothing. She was just worried that he would overturn the vinegar jar. As a result, the whereabouts of anyone who had a special relationship with Miss would still attract his attention. She didn't get Gong Mama's answer. Jingwan also didn't insist on getting an answer. How could Mama know about his matter? When Jingwan came out of the water, she wiped the water droplets and applied some ointment that could remove the traces earlier. She put on her clothes, dried her hair, and dressed neatly. No traces could be seen. Even if she met someone with sharp eyes and saw a little clue on her eyebrows, if they didn't think in this direction, it wouldn't arouse suspicion. Jingwan first went to old Madame Luo's place. Old Madame Luo's gaze swept over her body. When Jingwan was a little uncomfortable, she retracted her gaze as if nothing had happened, and chatted as usual. Jingwan spent time here, and didn't have the intention to drive her away. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but Jingwan always felt that grandmother seemed to know about her and Jin Qinwang's matter. It was only because of her love and tolerance for her that she never exposed it. She also gave her absolute trust, believing that she wouldn't do anything that was disadvantageous to herself or the Luo family. Perhaps there was also trust in Jin Qinwang. Other things aside, one point was very obvious. Jin Qinwang had such a bad reputation, yet grandmother never showed dissatisfaction with this marriage. She didn't show any concern for her future. According to grandmother's care for her, even if it was hidden in her heart, she wouldn't be unable to see it. So there really was something that she didn't know. Jingwan suddenly hugged old Madame Luo's arm and rubbed against it like a spoiled child. "What's the matter?" Old Madame Luo looked at her puzzled. Jingwan smiled. "Nothing. I just want to get closer to grandmother." Old Madame Luo smiled and patted her hand and didn't ask any more questions. Lunch break, and then they went to Sun Yijia's place. Third brother Luo Jinghua went out again. Among the 5 people, he was occasionally busier than Luo Shangshu. "When Hui, this ban has been lifted?" The meaning of the higher-ups seems to be that everyone has been restrained for a long time. The aftermath of the flood is basically stable. In addition, it won't be long before we return to the capital, so we can take advantage of this time to have fun. His Majesty said that it seems that it has been deserted for a long time. The imperial concubines in the temporary imperial residence have begun to gorgeously dress up and stroll around the garden again. Who said this? You, a person with 2 bodies who doesn't go out? No, but I don't know. It just happened this morning. Your third brother was dragged out by this year's 3rd scholar because he didn't send an invitation. Yesterday, the 3 grand scholars and your 5th brother, the number 1 young master in the capital, arrived. This Wen Hui is finally starting to look a little bit better, right? Jingwan wasn't belittling anyone. It was just that there were more young masters from aristocratic families who came to the temporary imperial residence. Most of these people were idlers. Even if they were pretending to be cultured, there weren't many who could really do anything. Since there's no invitation, there shouldn't be any restrictions on this impromptu Wen Hui. Sister-in-law, why don't we go take a look together? https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653254. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, Please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bikin.com. Bikago mobile reading website, bikin.com. Chapter 210. It's alright, we're just going to stand on the side and watch the fun. We won't get too close. Your pregnancy is already showing, so anyone with a pair of eyes won't get too close. We'll bring 2 more people with us to ensure that nothing goes wrong. Didn't the doctor say that your pregnancy is very stable and hasn't been affected by your previous pregnancy? So you can be a bit more daring. You don't have to be so careful all the time. It's good to walk around more, Jingwan said. In fact, Sunijia hadn't left the residence for nearly 2 months. She was still a bit depressed, so she nodded. Let's go tell grandmother first. Of course. It was a rule to inform one's parents before leaving the residence. Even in the environment of her previous life, Jingwan felt that this rule should be maintained. She should only inform her parents before leaving the residence, so that they wouldn't know where she went. This rule was especially important for the elderly, and it was even more important for special families. Don't say that you don't have a ***. Just saying that you're going out doesn't ruin your ***. Of course, if there was something shameful, it was another matter. Even if there were a lot of lies, some people would do everything possible to cover it up. Under normal circumstances, Madame Luo naturally wouldn't stop them from leaving the residence. She would let them go after a few words of advice. Madame Luo had always been tolerant towards the younger generation who knew their limits. Back then, Luo Jingying had made her feel disgusted, but that was also because of Luo Jingying's ability. The 3rd and 4th floors of the temporary imperial residence occupied a large area. There were very few halls and pavilions. It was similar in nature to the imperial garden in the imperial palace, but it wasn't as strictly guarded. Basically, it was open for everyone to use every year. In the beginning, when the princesses held banquets, it was also held in this place. However, today, there were even more people gathered, regardless of whether they were male or female, or whether they were married or not. Anyone who was interested could go. Of course, even so, looking around, there were basically no people over the age of 30, but there were quite a few children playing around. On the whole, it looked like there were men and women mixed together. But if one looked carefully, it was still men and women gathered together. Even if it was overstepping, it was only between husband and wife or close relatives. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, no one would be foolish enough to do anything inappropriate. When Wang Zhuyao saw Jingwan and the others, she called her elder sister and ran over. Jingwan reached out to help her, and wiped the sweat on her nose with a handkerchief. Don't run so fast. Be careful not to fall. Old Lord Yao giggled and pulled Jingwan's arm. The 2 of them were so close that those who didn't know would think that they were real sisters. Sister, don't worry, I won't fall. She then greeted Sun Ijia, who was beside her, and carefully glanced at her stomach. She had long been taught to stay away from pregnant aunts and sisters. Sister Jia, is there a baby in your stomach? Yes. Sun Ijia smiled. It was probably because she was going to be a mother that she was especially fond of seeing children. Wangzhu, do you want to touch it? Seeing her standing beside Jingwan, she was a little timid and curious about her stomach. Can I? Her elder sister, who was married, returned home with a pregnant belly, and her sisters-in-law, who were pregnant, all guarded against her like a thief. Especially once, she accidentally bumped into her pregnant elder sister. Before she could do anything, her elder sister wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf, saying that she was evil at such a young age. This made Wang Zhuyao very unhappy and very aggrieved. Fortunately, her mother stood on her side and didn't bother with them anymore. But, it's just a touch. It's okay. Jingwan rubbed her little head, as if she was about to do something big. Wang Zhuyao's little body stiffly took 2 steps forward. She stretched out her hand, but didn't dare to put it down for a long time. Her appearance was indescribably amusing and adorable. Sun Yijia held her hand and pressed it against her stomach. Wang Zhuyao's hand retracted a little, but she didn't feel anything strange. She gathered her courage and touched it, Her little face scrunched up. There's nothing special. Just as she finished speaking, she suddenly screamed and quickly retracted her hand, returning to Jingwan's side. Sister, it moved. As if she had done something wrong, she grabbed Jingwan's clothes nervously. Everyone couldn't help but be startled, including Sun Yijia. She carefully placed her hand on her stomach and looked at Jingwan with a dreamy expression. It really moved. It's the first time it moved. She had long heard that children would move at a certain time. Although she had always been looking forward to it, it was a little unbelievable that it actually happened unexpectedly. It was also a strange feeling. Didn't you say that it usually takes 5 months? Isn't it a little too early now? Sun Yijia was a little worried. Young madam, you worry too much. It depends on the situation of each person. It's not like there aren't any earlier cases, Granny Gong said. In fact, Granny Gong had never really served a pregnant woman before. However, she was very knowledgeable and could be very methodical. No one could tell that she was actually a novice. She was now very concerned about Sun Yijia's stomach. From time to time, she would check her pulse. She was even more meticulous than the people around Sun Yijia. Granny Gong calmly accepted the gratitude and said that it was her duty as a servant. At the same time, she secretly accumulated practical experience to prepare for Jingwan's future. Jingwan smiled faintly and comforted Wangzhu Yuyao. Don't be afraid, Yuyao. You heard what Granny Gong said. Moreover, when other people touched it, the baby didn't move. It moved when you touched it. It means that the baby really likes Yuyao. Really? Yuyao's eyes revealed a look of pleasant surprise. Children were naturally happy to be liked. Of course it's true. Sun Yijia also said with a smile. At this time, Yuyao's wet nurse came forward and bowed. She smiled and said, it seems that Wangzhu and third young madam's child are fated to be together. Nowadays, people believed in these things very much. It was also considered something to be happy about. In fact, many people had already noticed them. Regarding Sun Yijia's pregnancy, it was already known. After all, it was difficult not to know that her mother had made a scene in front of everyone. After that, Sun Yijia never appeared again. They even suspected that Duchess Ding was right. Now, it seemed that it was indeed Duchess Ding's fault. Sun Yijia didn't hide it. Her face was rosy, and the scars on her face were removed. She looked much better than before her face was disfigured. With a gentle smile on her face, compared to the arrogant and indifferent woman, she looked more approachable. If she was wronged by the Luo family, then 99% of the people in the world were probably soaked in Chinese gold thread all day long. This Sun Yijia's life is truly extraordinarily good, someone lamented. Quite a lot. Others echoed and glanced at a place where there were many people. The third young master of the Luo family first painted a stunning painting as a betrothal gift. Then he played the phoenix to seek for the phoenix. He didn't care about the secular world to express his true feelings. Now, it seems that he wasn't pretending at that time. He really cherished Sun Yijia in the palm of his hand. At that time, many people weren't optimistic about this marriage. Indeed, the Luo family was only interested in the power of the Duke Dinggua's mansion. Right now, the two families were not on good terms. If they really wanted Sun Yijia's dowry, they could just marry her as a decoration and keep her at home. If the Luo family wanted to control her, would Duke Ding's mansion compete with the powerful minister of the Ministry of Personnel, who was trusted by the emperor? For Sun Yijia, Duke Ding's mansion was almost equivalent to having no backing. However, she was better off than before she got married. She didn't know how many people were slapped in the face. It's obvious that the Luo family's style is impeccable. The third young master of the Luo family is noble and unsullied. He's not a superficial person who only likes beauty. That's true. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such achievements before the age of 20. Didn't they say that Sun Yijia is a complete rouge tiger? A girl next to them whispered. It seemed that she was just purely curious, but that little bit of jealousy and admiration that she thought she hid well could really be hidden from the eyes of a few people. A woman next to her glanced at her lightly and said carelessly, "These words are used by those who can't eat the grapes and say that the grapes are sour." The third young master of the Luo family is not a weakling. The Luo family is not powerless. If he really wants to flirt, who can stop him? Not to mention those who want to send him girls. There are countless people who want to recommend themselves to sleep with him. However, I haven't heard that he has touched anyone. In the end, it's because he is unwilling. Her in-laws are good, and her husband is good. She even got pregnant after marrying into the family. She really takes all the good things. It's probably because she has been a good person for several lifetimes. It's time for her to enjoy this blessing in this lifetime. Sun Yijia is pregnant now. Why didn't she find someone to serve the third young master of the Luo family? Even if she's not a rouge tiger, she's too unvirtuous. The third young master of the Luo family dotes on her. She should consider everything for the third young master of the Luo family. The girl from earlier spoke again, and her voice was much higher. Not to mention that many people around her heard it. Even Jingwan and the rest faintly heard it. Because they didn't hear it clearly, they looked in the direction of the voice. Then, Jingwan and the others realized that everyone else had a friendly expression on their faces, except for one girl who had her chin raised. She looked arrogant and provocative. It was simply baffling. Because there was a certain distance between them, they didn't know who she was targeting. Sun Yijia raised her eyebrows slightly. There was really no one who dared to provoke Sister Wan, at least not openly. Not to mention Wang Zhuyuyao, who was the beloved daughter of Great Elder Princess, was still young. Only an idiot would dare to provoke her. Then it was most likely her. She also glanced at the place where most people were gathered. Although she couldn't see, she knew that her husband should be in the center. I seem to remember that this girl seems to be from Marquis Chongping's mansion? Marquis Chongping's mansion was one of the 4 dukes and 9 marquises. It was not a country bumpkin, but it was almost in decline. Of course, even if it was in decline, it was not as good as the best. Moreover, it was the 11th prince's maternal family. Is she the legitimate daughter, or the daughter of a concubine? Jingwan glanced at her with a smile. What does it have to do with us? Well, Sister Wan, you're right. Sun Yijia nodded in agreement. Then, she ignored them and prepared to find a place to sit. But in this world, there was a kind of person who would not be obedient if you ignored them. Look, this girl came up to you. People who blocked his way for no reason would make him feel very unhappy. However, the girl didn't want to offend Jingwan. She greeted her with a smile, and then tried to talk to Jingwan. Unfortunately, Jingwan looked indifferent and ignored her. She didn't give her a hard time out of the most basic courtesy. The problem was, there were some people who didn't know how to read people's faces when you gave them face. Or, even if they understood, they would pretend that they didn't know. Even if they hit the snake with the stick, they would take advantage of it and act as if they were familiar with you. On one hand, they would intimately try to befriend you, but on the other hand, they would secretly look at your sister-in-law with disdain in their eyes. On the other hand, they would praise you from head to toe, and on the other hand, express their reverence for your elder brother. Jingwan finally looked her in the eye. Miss, has anyone ever told you that you are very noisy? Her words made the girl's face turn pale. Her eyes flashed with anger, but she bit her lip and looked like she was bullied. Third miss, I'm sorry. What you are has nothing to do with me. I'm not familiar with you. Also, the next time you talk to someone you don't know, please introduce yourself first, or at least tell me your surname. After all, after I came to the capital, I didn't go out much, so I didn't meet many people. Even those famous and well-known people might not be able to match up with me the first time I meet them, right? Jingwan smiled warmly, but her words were not polite at all. The girl looked at Jingwan in disbelief. How can you be this kind of person? Was written all over her face. There were quite a number of people who were leisurely watching the show, and at this moment, they couldn't help but burst out in laughter. No matter how thick her skin was, she couldn't help but blush. I originally thought that for a person like third young Master Luo, his biological sister would be a gentle and kind person with good upbringing. I didn't expect. Then I'm really sorry to disappoint you. That young lady finally raised her chin with an arrogant look. You're really a disgrace to third young Master Luo. You're just a young lady, yet you keep talking about a married man. Aren't you ashamed? This young lady's upbringing is for people with upbringing. Towards someone who is rushing to come between other people's husband and wife to be a concubine, who is willing to lower herself to others. What right do you have to ask this young lady to be amiable? My Luo family's residence is harmonious. Towards someone who wants to enter my house to stir up trouble, I'm already being very polite by not giving you a slap. Even if my third brother wants to take in a concubine, he would also choose a gentle, chaste and well-behaved young lady. The moment you came up, you're squeezing my sister-in-law. One look, and I can tell that you're a troublemaker. No matter how much money you pay, no one will be willing to accept you. It must be said that it was probably because of Li Hongyuan that Jingwan's temper had been rising recently. Thinking about it, for someone who could even lay her hands on, kick and throw her face at the king of hell, compared to her, other people were really not enough to look at. This ruthlessly slapped her face, peeled off her face, and threw her on the ground, and even stepped on her twice. Furthermore, her reputation was damaged. Not to mention other things, if Jingwan's words were spread out, this young lady's marriage would be in jeopardy. So Jingwan's words were not only impolite, but also a little vicious. Many people were muttering in their hearts. This third young lady Luo looked like a good-tempered person. If they really offended her, she would peel off a layer of skin. Moreover, she was now a person of noble status, and it would be difficult to find a way to make up for it. It was best not to offend her. You. That young lady pointed at Jingwan, so angry that her whole body was trembling. Jingwan looked at her calmly. It was not a provocation, but it was more like a provocation. That young lady was so angry that she lost her mind and slapped her. Jingwan was just about to push away, when Heimei's eyes were sharp and her hands were quick. In a flash, she was in front of Jingwan. She grabbed her wrist and unceremoniously threw her out. With her physique, the other party fell to the ground in an instant. At this time, a young woman hurriedly stood up and wanted to help her up. But that young lady did not appreciate it. Not only did she shake off the young woman's hand, she also slapped her. Seeing me being bullied, you're very happy, right? When we go back, I'll ask my mother to skin you. When she looked at Jingwan again, her eyes were full of hatred. She lay on the ground and did not get up, shouting that she did not want to live after being humiliated like this. The young woman was the most embarrassed. With the red palm print on her face, she felt very wronged. She wanted to apologize to Jingwan, but she was worried that her sister-in-law would not forgive her. She wanted to appease her sister-in-law, but she also knew that it would not work. She was in a dilemma. Seeing that the matter was getting bigger and bigger, more and more people were paying attention to it. Jingwan looked on coldly. To be honest, this person was shameless, but it really did not affect her. Sun Yijia pulled Jingwan, and there was a trace of worry in her eyes. In the end, Sister Wan was still protecting her. In fact, things did not have to go to this step at all. Sun Yijia herself did not care. She had already experienced the gossip, so it did not hurt or itch. But she did not want Sister Wan's reputation to be damaged because of her. Jingwan patted her hand comfortingly, indicating that this was just a small matter, and that there was no need to worry about it. He signaled for the servants to protect her and isolate all irrelevant people from the outside. All potential dangers must be eliminated. However, it was not easy to go out and encounter this kind of thing. It was also bad luck. Luo Jingbo was concentrating on painting. In the lotus pond in summer, a group of koi fish frolicked around. This time, they were vivid on the paper. Their postures were different and vivid, as if the fish were really swimming on the paper. At the beginning, Luo Jingbo's skillful and free posture was clearly just a few strokes, but he outlined their thousands of postures. In order to not disturb his painting, the people who were closer to him were all whispering. In fact, even if they were a little louder, it was not a big problem. Luo Jingbo was basically in a state of selflessness. It was just that the discussion outside was getting louder and louder, to the extent that the people close to Luo Jingbo frowned in displeasure. What's going on? Xie Rinxuan and Xie Zhuangyuan asked, deliberately lowering their voices. It seems that the girls are quarreling, but it seems to involve the Luo family's third young lady. The person behind said, and couldn't help but glance at Luo Jinghua. Even people who were more selfless when doing things were still very sensitive to certain things, such as people or things that were closely related to them. The words Luo family's third young lady directly entered Luo Jinghua's ears. His hand paused and he turned around. Who? My little sister? What happened? Chen Jingmin and Sun Yilin were also concerned. When it came to Jingwan, probably other things would not attract their attention. Being watched by these people, the person who just spoke felt a little pressured. Luo Jinghua simply put down his brush and directly stood up. The people surrounding him hurriedly made way. Chen Jingmin and Sun Yilin did not say anything and followed. The main character had already left. The others looked at each other and also followed to join in the fun. Luo Jinghua saw from afar that not only was his little sister, but also his wife. His heart thumped and he quickened his pace, appearing a little anxious. Seeing the root of the disaster appear, the onlookers took the initiative to make way. The other men looked at Luo Jinghua with a little jealousy and a little schadenfreude. The former was because his luck with women was good. The latter was because his luck with women was too good. Although the girl on the ground was not to the extent of making a scene and rolling on the ground, she did not want to get up. Similarly, she would not look good either. When she saw Luo Jinghua appear, she immediately looked even more pitiful. However, this was a heartless situation. There were a lot of people on the ground, but he did not see them at all. In his eyes, there were only his little sister and his wife. He nervously confirmed that the two of them were fine. Then he breathed a sigh of relief, and then asked what happened. From the beginning to the end, he unconsciously protected Sun Yijia. Luo Jinghua may be a blockhead in some aspects, but when he did things, he could inadvertently show off. Just like now, who knew how many women faintly stared at Sun Yijia, whether they were looking at him for personal reasons or sincerely. When they really saw him, the feeling was actually completely different. It seemed that envy, jealousy, and hatred were not enough to express their inner thoughts. Why didn't they meet such a man? Sun Yijia's heart was indescribably sweet. Although she was a little embarrassed to be so close to Luo Jinghua in front of so many people, she did not intend to push him away. She only whispered to Luo Jinghua what happened. Luo Jinghua frowned and looked at the girl, who was looking at him with tears in her eyes. He had never seen her before. Jingwan looked at her brother and suddenly smiled. Third brother, so many women like you and want to be your concubine. Are you happy? When Luo Jinghua heard this, he quivered and looked at his little sister. In other people's eyes, her smile was probably like a flower, but in his eyes, his little sister's smile was terrifying. He could not help but shrink behind Sun Yijia and said sternly, "What's there to be happy about? Little sister, you don't know, but I don't dare to go to many places. It's very annoying." Third brother, you are a rare talent. He also had a good temper. More importantly, he was an infatuated seed. His attitude towards his sister-in-law proved this point. So many people came to him because of this last point. However, if they really succeeded, would he still be that infatuated and faithful man? They would not think so much. They only wanted to get that feeling for themselves. Rare talent? Who did this to him? He really wanted to expose his little sister, but he did not dare to. Miss, it's very embarrassing for you to be like this. You should get up first. Also, thank you for your love. It's just that I don't have the fortune to enjoy it. Miss should have a good marriage of her own. If she had been pretending before, she really felt like she was about to collapse. Young master, if you say so, I don't have the face to continue living. If you don't want to live, then die early. The man's cold and stern voice seemed to freeze her for 3 days. Digression. What was written in the previous chapter that made people misunderstand? Why did people think that Wan had been completely eaten up? https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/66533259. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Com mobile version reading website, mbickin.com. Chapter 211. Because of this voice, this man. Jingwan discovered that many people involuntarily trembled, as if they had been greatly frightened. They hurriedly retreated a few steps, especially those who happened to be blocking the path, like birds startled by the twang of a bow. It could be seen that the prestige of the living king of hell was not just for show. Jingwan tilted her head and looked at Li Hongyuan, who had changed back into his black casual clothes after the hottest period had passed. He had a cold gaze, a dragon's beard, and a tiger's steps. He had an extraordinary aura. She had to admit that this man was really very dazzling. It was just that, every time he appeared, he seemed to want to make his presence known. He lived overbearingly and ostentatiously. In his dictionary, there seemed to be no such words as restrained, careful. It was just that, after such a man looked at her, his gaze would always become gentle. Moreover, it seemed that each time, he was more blatant and undisguised. After Jingwan met his eyes, she didn't know why she thought of what happened last night. She subconsciously averted her gaze, her face slightly hot. This bastard had too many tricks in bed. Every time, she was made to float in the clouds by him. Her mind was blank. How could she still care about shame or not? When she was truly ashamed, it was only when she thought about it later. However, Jingwan's shamelessness had been honed through years of training. Jingwan averted her gaze, so she didn't see Li Hongyuan's fleeting smile. First, it was because of the fear of Jin Qinhuang. Second, it was because of the reverence of the imperial family. At this time, almost no one would look directly at Li Hongyuan. However, it was only almost. There would always be a few who wouldn't be afraid of him and would be calm and collected. There were also those who placed their gazes on Jingwan and naturally followed her gaze. Because Wan Fengfei's heart was attached to Li Hongyuan, she could easily feel that he treated Jingwan differently. And as love rivals, Sun Yilin and Chen Zhengmin could naturally read the feelings in his eyes and didn't know what kind of mood they were in. However, that was Jingwan's upright fiancé. Both of them were outdated and didn't have any position to say anything. On the contrary, Jin Qinhuang's reputation was originally terrible to the extreme. To be able to obtain his love, for Jingwan, there were only benefits and no disadvantages. From this point of view, Jin Qinhuang couldn't wait for Jin Qinhuang to hold him in the palm of his hand wholeheartedly. But that surging jealousy, as well as that uncontrollable jealousy, made their hearts, livers, and lungs burn with pain. Li Hongyuan's cold gaze swept over, and the two people subconsciously lowered their heads. Li Hongyuan hooked up a mocking smile. Without mentioning anything else, just based on his identity, he could easily crush them to death. In front of Ben Wang, those pair of eyes weren't honest. They really didn't want their lives to be too long. However, he was stopped last night and didn't directly dispose of the two people. Naturally, it wasn't good to really kill them. Keeping these two people alive occasionally had some use, such as seizing the opportunity to cause trouble or something. But he couldn't just ignore them like this. Completely ignoring the fact that he was the one who designed the other person's marriage, and then turned around to kick the other person away. To a certain extent, he was the one who snatched the other person's fiancée. Now he instead viewed her as a thorn in his side. How shameless was he? Li Hongyuan stood beside Jingwan, and the surrounding people hurriedly paid their respects. And that young lady of Marquis Chongping Fu who was lying on the ground, trembling as she knelt on the ground. Li Hongyuan reached out to support Jingwan. As for the others, they didn't even bother to give half a glance. Fixedly looking at Jingwan for a moment, they then coldly opened their mouth. Dispense with the formalities. That kneeling young lady also trembled as she prepared to stand up. Ben Wang allowed you to stand up? The young lady, who had just stood up, half knelt down again with a plop. The sound of her knees hitting the ground was so clear that it made her suck in a breath of cold air. But she didn't dare to make the slightest sound. Teardrops swirled in her eyes, but she held them back and didn't dare to let them fall. She even lowered her head, not daring to let him see her weak posture. Jin Qinhuang kept a courtyard full of beauties, and would also place beauties in the palm of his hand to pamper them. But there was a prerequisite. That must be the beauties that caught his eye. As for those that didn't catch his eye, they should never expect him to have tender feelings for the fairer sex. When he wanted to attack someone, there would be no distinction between men and women. Just now, you were the one who was shouting that you don't have the face to live? The lotus pond at the side, jump in by yourself. That young lady was scared to death. What she said just now was only pretending to be weak, a habitual method to make people's hearts soften. She was still so young, and it wasn't something that she had to die. How could she really commit suicide? But this living king of hell always kept his word. If he wanted to pinch a person to death, it really was as simple as pinching an ant. It was a matter of life and death. How could she continue to do nothing? Wang Ye, please spare my life. This subject's daughter only spoke unintentionally, asking Wang Ye to be magnanimous and spare the subject's daughter this time. Wang Ye has mercy, Wang Ye has mercy. While kowtowing, she begged for mercy. Someone come. Throw her into the water for Ben Wang. Li Hongyuan didn't show the slightest bit of emotion as he coldly and ruthlessly said. The ability of the people around Li Hongyuan to carry out his orders was absolutely first class. A guard stepped forward and grabbed that young lady's arm, dragging her towards the lotus pond. His speed was very fast, as if the weight of a person didn't affect him at all. That young lady flailed her arms and legs, but she didn't have the slightest bit of image. She cried until her face collapsed, and at the same time, she kept begging for mercy. There were a lot of rumors about Jin Wangya, but it was the first time that the majority of the people present had seen him kill someone without saying a word. As the saying goes, rumors would never be as shocking as seeing it with your own eyes. Towards Jin Wangya's reputation as the living king of hell, they had a deeper understanding. It was clear that the weather had just cooled down a bit, and they were still wearing summer clothes, but they felt a cold air rush up from the soles of their feet, making them feel that their bones and blood were cold. Jingwan was also greatly shocked by Li Hongyuan's style. Seeing that the former guard was about to jump into the water with the young lady of Marquis Changping Fu, but when the master said to press her into the water, it was naturally impossible to just throw her in. Wait! 2 words, but it also made that guard obediently stop. When the master's orders were in conflict with the future female masters, he would temporarily listen to the future female master's orders. Then, when the 2 masters reached a consensus, he would carry out the final order. This was probably the consensus that Li Hongyuan's servants had reached in their hearts. In reality, it was impossible for the master to bring the matters that had to be dealt with in front of the Luo 3rd Mississippi. Since it was done in front of her, either the master wanted to play dirty, or he did not care about the final result. It didn't matter whether it was true or not. To a large extent, the final decision would be made by the Luo 3rd Mississippi. Li Hongyuan quietly looked at her, as if waiting for her to speak. Jingwan still hadn't touched the other's bottom line of indulgence. But now, she didn't think that she could influence all of his decisions. She hesitated for a moment, asking Wang Yi to be lenient. It's just some inappropriate words and actions. It's not a crime worthy of death. You plead for leniency, Ben Wang will naturally give you face. However, in the future, if you meet this kind of person, there's no need to waste your breath. You can directly ask someone to deal with them. Remember, in the future, you will be Ben Wang's Wang Fei, husband and wife as one. Whatever honor Ben Wang has, you will have the same honor. Whatever you encounter, just be at ease and do it boldly. If something happens, Ben Wang will take responsibility. Hiss. This was simply a living king of hell, who wanted to bring out a female king of hell. When they were in the Gong Wang Fu, they had already noticed that Jin Wang Yi treated Jingwan differently. Now that they had truly said it out, they feared that no one would go up and find fault with her. Jingwan's heart was originally not made of stone. In addition, it wasn't the first time that she had been touched by Li Hongyuan. When he said such words and gave her such dignity, her heart felt warm. She unconsciously revealed a smile and squatted. Many thanks to Wang Yi. That if she was willing, she could completely walk sideways in the capital in the future. No matter who it was, they would have to be respectful to her. When they spoke, They would also have to be careful to avoid inadvertently saying something that would offend people. Even if she didn't wear the phoenix robe, she would still become the most honorable woman in the world. These words weren't said for fun. That girl escaped from death. At this moment, she was so grateful to Jingwan that she shed tears. Don't talk about having any strange thoughts. She only wished that she could disappear forever. However, she was so frightened that her hands and feet went soft and limp on the ground. She couldn't even think of thanking Jingwan. The death penalty can be avoided, but it's difficult to escape punishment. With one sentence, the person who had climbed up from the pit was slapped back down. Which family are you from? Obviously, if she didn't kill you, she would directly implicate you. Which family are you from? Roll out and claim yourself. As soon as her voice fell, the young woman who had been beaten just now and a man rolled and crawled out to kneel. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/66533262. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bikago mobile reading website, bicken.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.